Rock and roll special Sabbath edition. We got a rock and roll for the firefighters, butchers, bakers, nurses, truckers, plumbers, electricians, the welders, helicopter workers, those in the daycare changing some diapers, although it's Saturday today. It is the Sabbath until tomorrow, and we know you got that. Rainbow Dragon, Dragon Zero Priestess of the goddess, HNH. We're gonna get in the sun in 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. 4 seconds. Oh yeah, 31 degrees, another heat wave. But what's interesting is that by tomorrow is gonna be supposed to drop to 15 by 3 p.m. tomorrow. So 3 p.m. today was 31. It's still 31 today. It's 6:06, I believe. And that means that 31 minus 15, that's 16. So temperature is gonna drop in 24 hours by 16 degrees in just 24 hours. Imagine that. So if tomorrow is gonna be 30, if today was 31 and tomorrow is gonna be 15, that is 16, 16 difference, that's what it is, and that's what it is with that. So imagine that calculation, that's a lot, that's a big double degree, so that's why I gotta put it there. A lot of garbage, and there we go. So 31 minus 15, 16 degrees, so more than twice. So the temperature is gonna go down basically by half, more than half. That is quite mathematically, if you think about it, that is really, really a lot. That's really a lot of degrees where we're gonna go. And we got a little bit of the sun, and the sun's strikingly hard. But I don't mind it, I love it. I put a little bit of cream. So today's special Sabbath meditative dance. You know how it is, rock and roll dancing is my favorite sport. And wearing those slippers, auctioning everything that I'm wearing, because I got this gifted from my anonymous friend who wasn't my friend because of the money, because I never had any. And I got this beautiful gift, and this one as well from her as well. So I got to auction them for a million each to give half to my anonymous friend. That is 50-50. I'm gonna propose again by September 11. I got 2 no's already. I proposed special because it's gonna be I'm part of the LGBTQ community, so I'm androgynous, pansexual. You get that 50-50. So many reincarnations, past lives, that I'm a man, woman, man, 50-50 today. But always for the Democratic Centric Republican of North American fusion. And of course today special for the Air Canada. The Air Canada in the past 4 days, it's been 4 days that there has been some negotiation, planning on strike, 72-hour notice given 4 days ago, and then finally they went on strike, Finally they went on strike last today, and now supposedly today there's been some intervention by the government that they're ordered to be back on work. So from what I know, it was related mostly to 10,000 flight attendants, and whatever the dispute, all the details, of course, I don't know. I just know a more superficial manner, but I do know my geopolitics, my rock and roll, and always rock and roll for those who made less than 50,000 last year. I've been marching on my old Facebook channel because I haven't been there in a month, so I got to do a new Facebook channel now. But always for the firefighters, truckers, butchers, bakers, nurses, electricians, and the plumbers, the bakers, and I myself survived on less than 11,000. 11,000 last year I survived. 2024 I survived on less than 11,000, but I guess because my rent can't complain, although it went up this year. I gotta feel good on the rent and better than where I used to live, and gotta get that gratitude. But I had many jobs, many employments. I might get some opportunity in the coming weeks, but because of my neurodivergent mental psychic condition known as Asperger's, we Aspies are very underemployed. The unemployment percentage for my Asperger community, we're the neurodivergent community known as Asperger's, we stand at 80%, 80+%. So that is 4 out of 5 which are unemployed, 4 out of 5 which are unemployed. So you got to think about that, and of course in the meditative aspects of where we are, that so much unemployment is for my tiny community. My tiny community is only less than 1% of the population, less than 1%. Half of a percentile, not even half of it, 0.44%. So we consider a small percentage of the population of the North American Collective, 0.44%, not even half of a percent, right? So that's why it's not that well known. But unfortunately, the unemployment stands at 80+%. That is totally unacceptable. So I had many jobs, and many employments. It's just keeping them, you know. For Aspies, that's the paradox, because I was thinking if that's so high for Aspies, 80%, you can imagine that that is very problematic. And I'm grateful, thankful that I'm gonna get some food here today. I don't know if they're sandwiches or what have you. I'm gonna take some of those for my anonymous friend, and because the expiry date passed on them, and that's always good to get a little bit of rock and roll. I don't know what this is. Maybe a little bit of food. Yeah, I'm gonna get some food here. Bear with me a bit. That's what I'm gonna get some. I'm gonna get these for my friend, actually. These I'm gonna get for my friend, and yeah. Bread I won't take because bread I got, but this is, what is this? This one? Yeah, this I'm gonna take one for me. One for my friend, and I guess that's supposed to be cheese sauce, or that is. I guess to use it for that, and yeah. Oh, you got these. Thank you. That's what I'm gonna eat. And you got some of that. I don't know if this is Philadelphia. Oh yeah, to spread on the bread. So that's. I'm gonna take a bread then to spread it on the bread. I'm gonna do a feast when I come back. Although I got some bread, but there's gonna be some bread taken. And some other one. I'm gonna take 2 breads, one for me, one for my anonymous friend. So that's it. And you can have a little bit of sauce, you can have a little bit of soup. I'm gonna leave the rest for others. So I'm just gonna take for 2. And of course, gotta clean those hands. And here, somebody you can come and take. You have that plenty of soup there left. That soup, that is good. I tried it, but I tried it when it was in packed in other bags. So now I'm just gonna put the backpack. It got a little bit on the heavy side. Not too heavy, but I have to check here and close it. And that's where we're gonna close the bag and do it rock and rolling, you know. Always for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the electricians, the plumbers, and that is just how we're gonna go drill it, you know. In the sun, and make it now, and that's about it. And gonna go get some of that laundry soap. So we're going actually to buy laundry soap. That was my intention, because tomorrow there's a storm coming. And maybe I said I don't want to go during the storm and thunder. Oh yeah, the backpack now is adjusted. I love this backpack. I love the red one, of course, is my favorite color. But this one is really, really nice as well. And it adjusts just perfectly fit whenever you put stuff in it. It adjusts kind of perfectly. And now I gotta turn my head left or right. Just turning our heads, you know, when you cross the street, get that double prudence, and that's how we're gonna rock and roll get some of that good laundry soap here. So back to the Air Canada again. Thank you for the food there. Food distribution, always something good, I guess, when you get some food distributed. And all those who do their work in food distribution, food security is so important, that we take for granted. I wonder how much the rent is here. Not that I'm wanting to rent just like that, how much it increased in the past 3.5 years, because my rent increased. But this year only, I'm gonna not say how much, but my rent increased between $6 and $10. So either or, you take your pick, and do of course the pick where you have to pick it, but it could be a variation between 6 and 10. So I cannot complain for my rent, but I'm just wondering how much the rent was there. And I can't complain where I live. I used to live in a moldy place on the ground in Citoyen, CDN. About, of course, a few years ago, and I moved. It was 2015, and of course it's 2015 when I moved. I thought it was 2016, and that was, of course, the moving from that moldy underground basement in Citoyen, still in the island, Montreal, Hawk, HAWK, Hawk Island. But I don't know exactly how many years I lived there, because my memory, you know, goes on the blackout. I have problems remembering my life prior to spring 2014. It's like retrograde. So I don't really remember that much my life prior to. Actually, it's just trouble accessing memory prior to my life prior to 2014, spring 2014 to be precise, spring 2014. So it's really hard for me to remember. It's, I don't know, maybe the mold there, maybe I was a junkie. Was I a junkie? Was I a junkie? Was I a junkie? Was I a junkie? Or was I doing hard alcoholic beverage consumption? Which, if I was an alcoholic for a few years, that's also probably a cause for memory loss. Sometimes alcoholic use, trauma. I remember being attacked by surprise, hit my head on the concrete, and the Montreal Metro, fell my head on the concrete, and of course had a dislocated right arm, right shoulder, and I was bloodied up, and went to the Jewish General Hospital, so I guess I gotta retrieve that. I give myself another deadline, the fourth one, because this is the last one until, not just to propose to my anonymous friend again. I'm gonna do it like Biden. Supposedly he proposed over and over and over, and he got 6 no's, then finally the 7th he got a yes. So me is gonna be the next proposal. It's gonna be the 3rd time. So by September 11, probably gonna do it September 10, just at midnight. I have to write a letter because XYZ and is gonna want to marry this androgynous pansexual spatial type of marriage. But whatever it is, just back to what I was saying is, of course, that my life prior to spring 2014 remains a mystery in terms of memory, So I have a good memory of the past 7, 8, 9, 10 years. Then 7, 8, 9, then it gets on the blackout blurred, Plenty of scars, survived so much, and I live with this neurological mental divergent condition, so I don't want to focus too much on it because I want to get to labor strikes and what I think about the general overall labor unions. As you can see past my videos for many, many, many years, I've been, of course, an advocate for the workers and those, of course, the labor in general, but in my own North American collective sense as of being a pro-labor and love universal revolutionary centrist. But this revolutionary centrism, you have to understand, it is also concocted to my prediction based from 2019 when I predicted what's happening now. Hey, I have proof because that's my special interest. If you don't know what special interests are for Aspies, they're also called obsessive interests, and of course obsessive interests of course those which are of course called obsessive interest, of course in the manner that we are protruding, of course, to be, and we are especially focused, super intense, super focused, super concentrated when we are involved in those special interests, aka obsessive interest. But it doesn't render me justice or any fellow Aspies, I guess, but don't represent the whole community, but to use the word obsessive, because an obsession is more for you, the vast majority of neurotypical. So let's say an Aspie would have a special, see, that tower, cell phone tower. If an Aspie's special interest would be telecommunications or science technology, he would know so much about that tower that we would be able to converse for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours incessantly about 3G, 4G, 5G cell phone telecommunications and everything related to the microchips and every the components, the hardware that is composed in a special smartphone. But that's not in this life, in a parallel life, yes, but my special interest is geopolitics, sports and fitness, dancing being my favorite sport, and rock and roll. So those are my trinity, and for years and years and years and years I have this specialized routines. Even though today is the Sabbath, we're gonna shorten the work and we're resting a bit. That's why we got on those special feet and special marching, slower, a little bit on the slower march than usual during the weekdays because it's special Sabbath, so it's a more relaxed type of march today. But nonetheless, I have Asperger's, and I've been diagnosed unofficially by several citizens, individuals who I've met throughout the 7, 8, 9 years, and many have diagnosed me with Asperger's, but they have, of course, some experience in the healthcare system. But of course, where we have to commence and begin is that Asperger's is not a mental illness. So it is a neurological mental divergent condition, but not a mental illness. It's not a mental illness. So it's not a mental illness. And a lot of people quantify it as a disease. Even not last Tuesday, but the other Tuesday before, I was discussing with somebody, and the person had mentioned, yes, when I mentioned it, we said, well, yes, I know what it is. I said, yes, I know it's the disease. And I said, no. And he said, oh, no, I know, it's a disease of the brain. I said, no. It's not a disease. And then, of course, he autocorrected, said, it's not really a disease. It's a neurological mental divergent condition. And, I love those flowers. They're so beautiful. Just makes me think a little bit of that ice cream. And that special ice cream type of, I guess, frozen yogurt. Or it's called Napolitane. Napolitane. It's got 4 flavors, and I love that one, but I don't I don't find it this year on the market. I don't find it on the market this year. Maybe I didn't go to the right shops. So if you want to treat their dragon, wafers, chocolate, hazelnut, or strawberry, or mixed chocolate and vanilla wafers, WAFERs, or Napolitan four color ice cream. 4-color ice cream. The Napolitan is called officially the title. It has the chocolate, the vanilla, then it has like the strawberry, raspberry type of blueberry flavor, and then another flavor. It's usually 4 colors. And sometimes it might be 5, but traditionally I think it's 4. Anyways, it's like those flowers. So this is Asperger's. So the way we communicate sometimes is more strange, more awkward, more bizarre, and our communication styles can be more awkward, bizarre, and strange. And we have certain special interests, and the way we communicate sometimes is more odd, and in a way that is more technical or philosophical, cosmopolitan, academic. It's just the use of language sometimes is conferring more academic, scholarly, intellectual, overly sophisticated, sometimes linguistics or terminology or parlance, but it's just a condition of Asperger's because of these. We have these mutations of the brain. A mutation of the brain at the microscopic level. Of course, they're not outwardly visible in the exterior plateau of the cerebellum, but they're actually internal at the microscopic level. At the microscopic level, right? So they're nano, think about it in terms of transistors on a cell, based on transistors, the microchips or processors, right? Microprocessors. I found a card. Oh, it looks like it's damaged. Probably no good. Don't leave that there, please. Just put it in the recycling and empty it, rinse it, and put it in the recycling. Don't leave that there. You know, that's not good. If you leave that there, it's not cool. That's what I have to say. It's not cool. So that is just Asperger's for you, and that is just how Asperger's we are. You know, different. And in the neurotypical world, of course, we have to get on the left and on the right and on the zest, and that is something which we have, of course, to get. And we have to get on the appellation, of course, some of the verbosities that we use. Sometimes they're these special, of course, intellectual, sophisticated, cosmopolitan terminologies. And that's what we have to do, and that's what we gotta get doing with that. And that's what we gotta get it on the sunshine, always rising, always setting. And that is sometimes what we have to do on the appellation of this aspiness and its characteristics, not symptoms, right? You cannot say symptoms because it's not a disease. And just like my fellow citizens who autocorrect sometimes, or sometimes have to explain that it's not a disease. It's, yes, we have certain ways when we are less able, less capable in certain domains of the discourse of the social nature, or more social. The socializing comes more difficult for us because we have and it's not, the cause is not known. It's either hereditary, biological, or genetic, genetic, or it could be a combination of hereditary genetic factors, or it could be a combination of environmental factors. This is now open, and we need to be opening up all motels, hotels, and fast foods for the dragonomias. I'm calling for the foundations via public-private partnership, and in order to fully comprehend the pledge of allegiance, friends with benefits only, don't will to waste nobody's time. I work, and we can work and pleasure play sometimes with some good loving together, but in the majority of the instances, that's now gonna cross the street just to finalize on Aspiri. It's not a mental illness. Due to these mutations, we are more strange, weird, awkward, bizarre when we communicate. Of course, in the social aspects, of course, come more difficult for us. You know, the social become more difficult for us. Socializing comes more difficult for us. So this socialization, of course, the aspect of course of socializing, and of course of the dynamics of being, of course, in the domain of which we are. We can excel at certain things, par contre. For example, we can excel in those special interests. Those special interests, of course, make us super intense focus, and we dedicate pretty much of all. When you hear the police, you gotta slow down, you know. And here we got how we can pass on the other way. Maybe we can go by one side or the other side here. How are we gonna go on that side? Maybe by the other side. So when you hear the police, of course, you gotta slow down the car, slow down the pace, and just slow down a bit, you know. Super important to just press on when you hear alarm of an ambulance, of a firefighter, the truckers, when you hear it, just press down on the stop and just slow down, slow your gears and look left and right, you know. Slow down, stop pressing the accelerator when you hear police, firefighters, and you hear the ambulances, you know. It's like you heard it now, and you gotta do your due diligence, I guess, to slow down a little bit, you know, as we have a little bit of that rock and roll, because it's times when, you know, some people are in crises or going through whatever they're going, maybe a mental breakdown or financial, or I don't like violence, myself, I don't like violence. I lived it, I was attacked by surprise and have flashes of trauma and attacked and several times in the past, and I was bloodied up and went to the Jewish General Hospital. Put on some meds. They re-cracked my arm, my shoulder, you know. They re-cracked my shoulder in the back, and they put it back on the go, and that's what we gotta get doing on that. So they re-put it on the go, and that's what we have to get doing. So they re-put it and crack back. So that's what it is with that, and that's what we gotta get doing with that, and we gotta get it on the go. So that is just me, who doesn't like violence, but I am hyper vigilant, you know. I am hyper vigilant, and that hyper vigilance. But now I gotta sing a little bit of rock and roll, you know. Rock and roll, of course, for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, firefighters, plumbers. Imagine all the work here, all the aqueducts. Imagine sometimes I was done, all underneath, you know, underneath this, underneath that to get it going. All that, of course, where we are to get it on the go, and that's all we have to get doing on that. And always for the firefighters, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the firefighters, all the plumbers, the electricians, all those involved in the production, distribution of food, and all those, of course, who are now involved in the trucking business, and of course in the cooperative business, and all, of course, who get it on the go. And that's what it is with that, and that's what it is with the go, man. Look at this, all that work. That's what it is. Wow, can you imagine? You come do this work here. I can only sing some of that rock and roll for that. Always gonna sing some of that rock and roll for that, and gotta get it off, and that's what it is with that. And so you have to get doing on that, you know. Always for the butchers, the firefighters, the electricians, the plumbers, the bakers, the nurses, you know. Think about them, all of them who are going on now. That's how you gotta get that drill, you know. Get it now, man. Look at that. This is public works. Now this puts a smile on my face, because I just realized how civilization is a privilege, you know. Civilization is a privilege, just to have this right here. Wow, good work. Wow, this is long. And this we need across the North American Collective. And this reminds me of the North American Criminal Rehabilitation Act. My brothers and sisters who lost their liberty, of course, gotta be put on some massive public works for our empire. Gotta be put on some massive public works for our empire. You know, it's something which we have to do integrally. And of course, we got a lot of cleaning to do, but look at this, how long. So all those laborers, of course, will get on that labor side of things, and we'll get it on those potholes to be fixed and the aqueducts to be fixed. Imagine all the aqueducts, all the laborers, you know, yes, that's the brains and muscle right here with that machine. Always gotta sing some rock and roll for the big machines, big brains. I'm Big Muscle gotta say, I'm Big Muscle gotta say. And we know we pray it every day, we pray it every day. So you know we gotta say, left and right we gotta pray, and we gotta pray, yeah. We gotta pray, but we gotta slay, we gotta say, we gotta sing. Sing better than pray, because I guess they're better than praying. You could use a Messiah service. Priestess of the Empire, God bless, God is kiss. Put some action, you know, but we need a mass rehabilitation. And just now I did an integral geopolitical meditation, because for aspiness, again, is not a disease, it's not a mental illness. It is okay, a neurological mental divergent condition, of course, which makes us predisposed to special interests, and those special interests for me is geopolitics. And I predicted what's happening now, geopolitics in 2019. I predicted that there's going to be an international conflagration. I predicted that there's going to be an international conflagration back in 2019. In 2019, predicted that there's gonna be an international conflagration back in 2019. I have proof, as I've been showing it in the past weeks, you know. I've been showing it a lot on the videos, and you can see it for yourself. And that's basically because of this special interest, paradoxically, which as aspects we have with intensity, super focus. And even now, I put this public works that are undergoing on the ground, massive public works, probably to rehabilitate and regenerate. And somebody left some glasses here. I guess somebody left some glasses. Maybe they dropped them. Small and big. I'm not gonna let them be destroyed. I'm gonna donate them. I'm gonna donate them there. So I'm gonna donate these glasses. I'm gonna put them. I just found some glasses. Maybe I'm gonna ask them if they want it. Hey guys, I found some glasses over there. You guys want them? Yeah? Yeah, I just found them. Have a nice day. And otherwise they're gonna get squashed by the cars, you know? If they passed. No te doy nada, chico. Let me see it, man. Oh, it doesn't work. Oh, it's not away. Yeah, so I think we gotta enter by the other side. I'm just in and out, basically. Just in and out. Getting a little bit of soap, and that's about it, you know. Getting a little bit of soap, man. Soap. Yeah, I need some soap, man. Oh, I gotta get this cream soda though. I'm gonna get two. Because it's on special. So I'm gonna get 2 cream sodas. Oh, which we're gonna buy 11. 11. They get on the pricey side. Which one's supposed to be on special though? Oh yeah, it's supposed to be on special. Soft. You gotta get that 4. That's 3.5. I saw it for, what was the price? So, cause I'm financially stressed, but this one seems nice. $3.99. This one's good. Wait a minute, this one's good. Light scent. I get. No, but not fabric conditioner though. No, not fabric conditioner. What is this? No, I don't need fabric conditioner. Fabric softener, no. It's what I need is laundry detergent. Thank goodness I double checked. Thank goodness I double checked, you know. This is actually the best option because it's 4.4, 4 in 1. So it went from 16, $15.99 is basically 16. Let's not kid ourselves, right? So I get more. So right away in my mind, of course, because of the 4, because it's 4.43 liters. Because it's 4.4. Those ones are 1.62 liters, 1.8 liters. So this one you get more for the buck. So this is the best actually for me to get this one. Even better than this one, because that's $11.99, right? But that's only 2.75 liters. So in terms of quantity per price, not necessarily the quality, but definitely for the price. The price, you know? The price. Price. Hi. Nice cleaning. Thank you.
You have the points card?
We do, yeah. Just give me a second because I have some in the backpack here. Just want to put that first because I got some food. So if I put it on top of it, everything is going to squash. Won't be long.
This is preferred, this is good.
Yeah, it's now drink it, drink it. Maybe do not. Debit?
No, we'll pay you cash, thank you.
$13.38.
13,333.
13.30.
Thank you so much. Likewise to you as well.
I don't.
Yeah, there we go. Now the backpack's really heavy. Well, not that heavy, to be honest. Not that heavy. A little bit on the heavy side. Not extremely heavy, but it is heavy enough. Not that heavy, but it is something which we have to, getting on the go, Yeah, oh yeah, now it feels like we're gonna get a workout, which we are planning to, but let's arrange it here in the sun a bit. A little bit of that bill in and out. So I had to put them in the bag. So what I did is I put everything in the back, in the backpack, in the backpack. In the backpack, and that's all we got, and that's how we drill. And here we go in the sun, roundabout, we're gonna drill it on. And here we got a thrift store, and I got some change back. It's always good to get a little bit of that change, some things which we have, and the drilling, of course, of the North American Collectif. Oh yeah, getting a bit of sun. And of course, if I wouldn't have switched everything, then that would have been, of course, problematic. Because of course now the backpack has all those items, so we're gonna just take a look at the bill. I just calculated by fast, so of course, yeah, that's with the taxes, see, because it was 75 cents. Then yeah, two for 150. Then of course, see, you can check the bill for yourself, and always make sure, because sometimes the cash register doesn't, of course, scan well and properly. So I got exactly what I needed, because that's what I need for tomorrow. Now I get ready to go, and I got $5, $6, 10 left. So that means that my whole money to last me, since I spent, I'm gonna double check, but it might be that I'm at $44 for the rest of the month. $44 and about $44 and about 90 cents. See? So that's the bill, and I got 660 as the change, and that's here what we got, and that's what we gotta go drilling now, and that's what we're gonna go put it on, and that's of course something what we have to integrate, appellate, and of course we're gonna reshovel the backpack, and you're gonna see everything that's in it, and then we're gonna drive it back home to my headquarters, the lair of the dragon here in the sun. Always gonna get, see, let's see. So now we have, now it's on the heavier side, right? So now it's more than 44 pounds, that's for sure. So I got food, I got these little ones, these are gonna be at the top because they're low for my anonymous friend and I got these, since I don't want these to break, I got 2 bags like that. Then I'm gonna put them in this, you know, to get it more. So I'm gonna put them in this. See, gonna put them in that, just like that, 1 and 2, so that they don't break. I guess, I'm assuming that's the cheese to go with the dinner, which we're gonna have. Thank you for those, of course, who made a little bit of an effort to give a little bit of that dinner. Of course, we got this one right there. Of course, we got that one right there. We got some cream cheese at the top is gonna go. We got some of that. Also, that's for dinner. And then I got these for my anonymous friend. I guess if they're made in Germany, I'm gonna take 2 for me. Yeah, made in Germany, Germany, Deutschland. So we got those, and we got those 2 for me, 2 for her, and then we got that bread. And now what I bought from the store, so another bread for that cream cheese, and what I bought from the store. So we're gonna put it in. So we got this 1 soda cream. It's rare that I buy soda cream. I said since it's summer heat wave for tonight is gonna be a little bit of soda cream and this, you know. So this is actually 9 pounds, more than 9 pounds. Yeah, this is more than 9 pounds because it's 4. This is yeah, this is about 10 pounds, 11 pounds with the cover seal because it's 4.4 liters, 4.43 liters, of course, and that 4.4 liters estimates, of course, to be for the laundry soap. And of course, we got this. This is, of course, another 2 pounds and another 2 pounds. And with another 2 pounds, that is something which we have, and that is something which we're gonna get drilling with it, and that is something which we're gonna get going, you know, and put them all there. Yeah, now it's getting on the heavier side, and put the bread first. The bread is harder than these right there. It's 4, and then these ones, see, and these ones, and that's where we're gonna go. That's where we're gonna drill it. That's what we're gonna drill it with, and that's what we're gonna get on that, and that's what we're gonna get on this one here, right here, and this one as well. There's 4 little 5. So now I'm happy, joyous, content, and now we can roll back. Now we got some of that good loving with it to do it, and that's what we're gonna get now in the sun, and always rock and rolling for the firefighters, bakers, butchers, electricians, and we got some Canada on it, see? I don't need it because I got it tattooed right there. This Canadian Quebecer who was born in the United States, 7076, and that's what we got, and that's what we're gonna get that rock and roll, you know? Always between the sun, and that's how we're gonna get that appellation to be, and that's we're gonna get that hydration, you know, boys, on the rock and roll side of things, and we're gonna get it on that. Yeah. Ready, set, hut. Give some charity NFL, NBA, and MLB. And when you open up the season, my 49ers playing today. 49ers. Give some charity, reduce the cost of the tickets. So yeah, the laundry detergent, of course, is 4.44. So this is a Aspie trade. So Aspies, some Aspies more than others. Myself, I'm not the best in mathematics, but just when it comes to ratio, proportions, ratios, dynamics, characteristics, of course, of the proportions, the dynamics, of course, it is something which we have, of course, to calculate immediately. I knew that the ratio, this one was the best price on the market because it was 4.43 liters, right? And the other ones were even somewhere higher in price, even higher in price. And not only that they were higher in price, but if you noticed, they were also less. They were less, right? Because one was 2.72 liters and was $13.99 compared to this one, $9.99. So that's $4 difference. So you get less. Now, of course, the quantity, the quality, this says 4-in-1, you know, 4-in-1, that's what you do, and 4-in-1, that's what you gotta get doing on that. So that is basically the calculation, you know, the mental calculation when you interject, and of course all the mental calculation that you have, of course, is the interpolation when we have, of course, to get the dynamics of the percentages, and then the ratio calculation of what is the best on the market. Because of course, the problem is that also financial literacy, but me, of course, my problem has been due to Asperger's, that I'm different, and we're different Aspies. So we might be weird like that. You know, with an Aspie, we would have probably spent hours there just calculating the whole store, the whole best of the stores, the dynamics on a daily basis, all the mathematics and the calculations, which of course are interpolated and interrelated inside integral, of course, of the market. So with everything that I saw there, because I was mostly analyzing, of course I got 2 sodas, and keep in mind those sodas the regular price was 99 cents. Now the regular price is 149. So do the dynamics from 99 cents to 149. That's 50 cents differential. 149 minus 99 cents, that's 50 cents. So that is an increase of 50% in the past 3.5 years. And of course the wages have stagnated. That's the problem. The fundamental, sometimes we get complex with 1,000 words in an hour of discussions on the news that we hear, but the principle is that the percentage of the prices many goods have increased by the percentage, while the majority of the salaries have only increased an average of 4.4%. So the cost of living crisis is due to that. The stagnation of the salaries in the majority, while the prices have increased. Even this one, I bought it on special for $9.99. But 3.5 years ago, $9.99 was actually the price which it sold originally at. You understand what's been happening? So now the price for the laundry detergent is $15.99. $15.99. The price for detergents is $15.99. You know, so now that is just how you calculate. You know, the dynamics, of course, on the interpolation of all the general dynamics which we have, of course, to go and drilling and to calculate the cost of living. Even myself, I've been suffering. You know, due to Asperger's, we're different, eh? So our brains computes the world, sees the world differently. So because we see the world differently and how we interact, which sometimes is direct, we can seem offensive or too direct or offensive. That is a character trait. And me, money Aspies, you just have to let us know, hey, don't continue that discussion because I'm offended and I have these emotional reactions. And Aspies, you will be understanding enough to acquiesce, but we have to let an Aspie know, because Aspies, we don't know. We're more into the things, for example, like those mathematics, calculating. We're good at that. Or good at those special interests. We can be good. An Aspie could be a good rapper even. Rap a little bit for the farmers, butchers, bakers, nurses, those flipping some hamburgers, cheeseburgers all the time, you know. And that's what it is, rock and roll. And that's what we got on the dimension. So of course the proposition is that Asperger's is not a mental illness. So being that it's not a mental illness, of course, it's not a mental illness. So that's just basically what it is. It's not a mental illness. It is a neurological mental divergent condition which makes us predisposed to these special interests, also known as obsessive interests. But using the word obsessive, it doesn't render Aspie's justice, right? It doesn't render Aspie's justice, because an obsession is more from a neurotypical perspective. You view somebody who is super intense, super focused, super concentrated, super in something that can study, for example, I could do for hours and hours and hours. I could spend, I guess, going from store to store, and just do hours and hours and hours a day of price comparison, relational proportionality, and do these mathematics, right? They're not that complex mathematics. I'm not a super math genius, and I do not pretend to be, not at all. You know, I graduated high school. I do not have a university diploma because, I don't know, it's, you know, and the percentage, just because if you know simple math, percentage of unemployed Aspies at 80%, 80 to 85%. More than 80% of Aspies are unemployed. Can you imagine that? 4 out of 5. And the problem is we have many jobs. I had many jobs, many employments, it's just keeping them. maintaining them is a problem because we're different, eh? So sometimes we can be too different to the point of creating antagonistic feelings, which I gotta thank my anonymous friend for gifting me 2 books, Asperger's, 2 books on Asperger's, 2 books on Asperger's, and of course those books related to Asperger's, which were gifted, autism and Asperger's. Asperger's is also known as HFA, and one which was rented 4 times, and I read it, and those rental 4 times was of course the Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome, which I recommend to all. Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome is really a book that I recommend to all. Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome. So thank you, anonymous friend, who wasn't my friend because he illuminated how my difference can sometimes put me in vulnerable situations, and many Aspies in vulnerable situations, prone for abuse or prone for other characteristics of which we have, because we're not fully aware of those characteristics that might of course create antagonistic feelings. I don't have antagonistic sentiments with the 99.56% of the population. I'm somebody who loves work, who loves physical activity, who loves people generally. No, I believe that we can, we have some good, we have second chances, third, fourth chances. Maybe I was given, because I lived there in 2014. I almost died when I was attacked viciously by surprise. I survived a vicious surprise attack years and years and years ago, was bloodied up, and I am hyper vigilant, so I will defend myself, my individual sovereign citizenship. And that's why I'm advocate for the creation of the Dragon Army, to of course create and be only for SSD, only for service, security, and defense. So keys there. Keys to world peace. Let it be for the keys to world peace. But first and foremost, keys for the North American Rehabilitation Act. How many keys? 1, 2, 3, 4. And then this one, I think it's a key also. So 4 plus, it's like 4 keys on one side, and then 1 key. I'm not going to touch it because this may be somebody's, but that is something which we have to get doing with that. And we have to get it on the gut, and that's what we have to get doing on that. That's what we got to get doing on that love, and that's what we got to get doing on those. Which is where we are. So whoever had those keys there is something which we have, of course, to appellate instantly. Because we are a North American collective, and all who come to join us as our brothers and sisters here in the North American collective, we have of course to appellate in the civilizational complex where we are, of all our dynamics, where we are intergiven and intermingling for all the complexities and the perplexities of our life as individual Aspies, sovereigns, who are constituting this tiny minority of the population. So, because we're not a lot in the world, so we just can say things some directly unfiltered, and don't have a filter really, but it's just working on this, because not by volition or ill intention or being malicious that we say things sometimes directly, and we don't mean to offend like that. It's just because our brains are different, and there's no medication for Asperger's. It's not an illness, so I'm not a disease. I mean, I can rock and roll about being a disease, but that's fundamentally where we're gonna appellate on that, and that's basically where we're gonna shut it down with that, So I'm not a disease, I'm not an illness, and my brothers and sisters, who are Aspies, that we have suffered struggle, and I guess more and more in the 21st century has been an acceptance and an integration. And I have no antagonistic feelings with the majority of the population, We just have to build bridges. Sometimes the bridges have to be small, medium size, large, or extra large. Small, medium, large, extra large. Whether they're small, medium, extra large, whether they're small, medium, or extra large, whatever the bridges are, whether they're small, medium, large, or extra large. Whatever those bridges are. I'm just saying, because when you order coffee, you order a small, medium, large, extra large, whatever the case may be. Small, medium, whatever the case may be. Whether you order a small coffee, a medium-sized coffee, a large coffee, whatever the case may be, you could order it, whatever the case may be, to get it on the go. So those 4 categories, of course, of bridges is something which we have to be doing like that, and we have to get that appellation to be, something where we have to get doing on that, and we got to get doing on that drill. So those bridges have to be built, and it takes a reciprocity, a reciprocity. reciprocity, a reciprocal dynamic to, of course, do it, a reciprocal doing it, So it takes the reciprocity. I cannot build bridges by myself or just within Ashby's. We have to be reciprocal. And if I would have a millionaire, I would definitely refurbish this. And by my DRT, we will be able to rebuild the ghettos of North America. We got to sign an executive order to rebuild the ghettos of North America, and everybody got to be in it, as though we're going to have the North American Criminal Rehabilitation Act. We're going to have the North American Criminal Rehabilitation Act to get, of course, also the public hygiene protocols, which we have to keep from COVID. But if I would have millions, I would definitely build that house up for. And here I used to do my laundry for years. See, right there in the corner, I used to do my laundry. So I gotta be grateful. Thank you, anonymous friend, who financed the laundry machine, and not just the laundry, but of course the laundry machine, and of course laundry machine and the washer and the dryer. So I gotta say my gratitude as I go across the street here for the financing of the foundation and of the foundational aspects of all the civilizational complexes which we have. That civilization is a privilege. So yeah, used to do laundry right there in the corner. So this is my new neighborhood, and this is part of my new neighborhood. And I used to live in that moldy place years and years and years ago, and my life prior to 2014 spring remains a mystery. What I do know is that I predicted what's happening now back in 2019. It is the Sabbath, and I'm happy, joyous that I went to get the laundromat, because tomorrow is going to be some storms, maybe some thunderclouds, and people are stressed, and the majority of the people are stressed. I don't have all the answers, but I do have a few of the answers, or a few of the rather terms phrasing them as solutions, because Aspies we tend to be solution-based focused, solutions, and things such as a social nature, social manners, we don't really understand. Our brains are different because of these mutations, so things such as gossip or other things like that, we block Aspies. That if you hear somebody gossiping, and your brain might just not know how to respond fully, because it's just something our brains doesn't fully compute, because our brains are different. So when we have these brains that are different, we see the world differently. And thus we interact with fellow citizens, fellow other citizens, of course, in a manner, of course, which is that the brains are different. And the fact that the brains has these mutations, Aspie brain has these tiny mutations, and there's certain things we just don't fully understand. But we have our strengths. That's why these bridges got to be built, because I don't have antagonistic feelings, relations with you, the neurotypicals. We just have to build bridges of understanding, of working together, and comprehensions. Because I have a lot to bring on the table, and a lot of people have a lot of things to bring on the table. I'm building a new table, like since 2014 spring. This is like my fourth beginning. This is like my fourth beginning, man, because I moved, I survived COVID, I was depressed, suicidal, and this is my fourth, beginning, and we need to get a little justice. And this is sometimes Aspies are labeled as an empathetic, incompassionate. It's not that. It's that Aspies will not necessarily console. Oh yeah, look at this beauty. Aspies will not necessarily console. Oh, this is a beauty. Aspies will not necessarily console. Aspies will not necessarily console. Aspies. This is nice and gorgeous. Aspies will not necessarily console. By verbal consolations. But, like myself included, I don't represent a whole Aspie community, but we would rather show compassion more by action, by doing something if we can, in the position of that we can. If we can do whatever the case we can be, whatever the case is. Not speaking financially, because of course financially I can't contribute to whatever the case may be, And of course I can't contribute financially because I'm financially stressed, but things such as doing some volunteering, doing some labor, doing some love, of course, is something which we have, of course, to do and comprehend in the manner that we can do. So here's, of course, something which I will to do. And of course to embellish, of course, all this by putting some yellow, some black and white, and yellow and purple, to embellish, of course, this beautiful underground tunnel here, which of course exists in the comprehensive manner where we are, of course, to the dictums of the appellations, of course, of saying, and of course of being part of the public sphere, because I got added responsibilities, duties, and obligations, and if you bring me the tools, the appellation, and to basically do the work here, that's basically something which I would love to do. And now we're gonna get a little bit of that hydration. Usually gonna let it a few seconds. Just think about this. How much brains and muscle, otherwise we will be drinking from the river. And it's something, of course, which we have to appellate and integrate in all the conjugations of the brains and the muscle and the labor, of course, which we have to do. The labor and the underground tunnels and all the aqueducts, all the brains to build all these aqueducts here is something which we take for granted. But it took decades and decades just to have a system where we drink potable water like this for the public hygiene. And now I'm going to enjoy this privilege of civilization by drinking this water in the public, because we got in the public added responsibilities, duties and obligations which we do not normally have under the normal concordium of the circumstances of daily living. And that's what we have to do, of course, in the appellation of being now fully immersed integrally as a public sovereign individual citizen who is neurodivergent and lives with this neurodivergent mental psychic condition known as, of course, Asperger's. So rock and roll 24/7. That's what we gotta do, that's what we gotta do. That's what we gotta get it on that. We're gonna put a bottle to That was my thesis back in 2023, the privilege of civilization. 2023, my thesis as the People's Doctor was the privilege of civilization. And civilization really is a privilege if you just think about it concordiantly. And of course, how we have this privilege of civilization. And the electricity taking Hydro-Quebec workers who build those transmission lines, and the underground, of course, system of aqueducts and the filtration system that the brains and the muscle, Civilization is a privilege. That's how we do, and that's how we have, and that's how we got here, in the inclusive infinite, of course, where we are. Get it for the go and for the now and for the butchers and the bakers and all those involved in the production, distribution of food, and all those, of course, now doing some of that good loving, because it's not all about the money. It's not all about the money, and we got a little bit of that hydration done. And now we're gonna go to the bridge, because we gotta build bridges, and that's where we're gonna go, to the bridge, of course. And we're gonna get drilling on that bridge, see if we can concord it. And ambulance drivers, when you hear the ambulances, gotta salute, send some love to our first responders across the 10, the 50, and the 63, always for our empire, March for our empire, Sabbath special dedication, of course, to those struggling financially. It seems like Air Canada as well is going on a strike, and it seems like there has been some intervention by the government, but we have to be calculating, and I have to be honest, and I have to say straightforward that, as I've been saying for years now, and of course that my DRT best, for the North American Collective, my DRT best, and it's not all about the money, we all know that it's not all about the money, but we have to have oh, that seems interesting. I don't have. I wish I could give my anonymous friend a house, but I'll keep the phone. I'll keep the... Interesting. Yeah, I always can learn some more. I know my geopolitics, but I guess it's always good to help some individuals and by giving some work. And I'm all about work. Arbeit, travay, trabajo. But, due to ASPI, it's problematic because we are different Aspies. So our unemployment level for Aspies, it stands at 80%, 80+%. So that is just a component of this Aspiness which we have to fix. We have to build bridges, and the three main problems facing Aspies like myself are lack of friends, and I don't want to waste nobody's time. If you want to be a friend with benefits, friends with benefits, you're black, you're white, you want to be a friend with benefits, you got to be 18 plus. I don't want to waste your time, don't waste mine. And I'm not sexually frustrated. I would discuss it if I would be. I have healthy, I guess. I like my BDSM switch, and I'm androgynous, pansexual. Gotta watch it so that there's no children or youth when I discuss this quickly, but because it's 18 plus. But I guess if they listen to South Park, I guess a lot of those things are more. Hey, there's flag spotted. Whenever I spot the Canadian flag, I gotta show mine. Flag spotted, I always carry on my body, the flag, and that's how we got, and that's how we gotta get it on the drill, and that's how we have to get drilling on that, and we have to go appellated, of course, in the matters which we are, to consume and to be, and this is consumers where we have to, of course, the dynamics of our interactions here is something which was fixed the other day. So, of course, being that is fixed, of course, the other day, of course, is something when we have to be, of course, in the interjection, of course, of the dynamics of we are alive. And it's not all about the money, because listen, if it's not all about the money, sometimes money can't save us in some situations, and we all know that in many ways, right? That's why every day live carpe diem it, carpe diem it. And with Aspiness, that's when since I survived COVID, in 2020. You need some help, dear? You're fine? Okay. No problem. You're welcome. Bye-bye. I want to save the auntie needs a little bit of a hand, auntie, and that's what it is, and that's how we got a little bit of help if I can, because sometimes I worked with the senior citizens and I assisted them in CHSLDs. I love that job. CHSLD, I worked with the senior citizens, and for the majority they really built all of this, They really built all of this, and they built all of this, that is something which we have to do on that go. And here we turn our heads, because sometimes they don't press the brakes, they don't press the brake, and they can swish and press the accelerator, and then, in the public we got added responsibilities, duties, and obligations. So that's just something which we have to do, appellative and integrally in all our beings, to be prudent when we cross the street, because we got added responsibilities, duties, and obligations, of course, and that is just something which we have, of course, to be and fully understanding of how we got all of our dynamics where we have to get doing on that. And we just a red truck brings me in, with the color, brings me in on the go. And I'm gonna cross the street, turn your heads left and right. What a nice truck. I'm biased because red is my favorite color already, although for some reason on the camera it kind of shows a bit orangey. As we go towards the orange, of course we gotta go doing on that, and that's what we have to get doing on the drill, and we gotta get for the love and the partners and all, of course, involved in production, distribution of food. And that's just something which we have to appellate integrally in our energetic forces and fields where we are, that it's not all about the money. And we have some subconscious discrimination, even my brothers and sisters sometimes have discrimination for a different color, blacks. But if I can render some justice, I don't have money to give, but I wouldn't be hesitant to employ or to give bad. And we have to rebuild the North American ghettos where a lot of our brothers and sisters, blacks, brothers and sisters blacks find themselves, and across North America. And we have to finance the rehabilitation of many, many urban areas and urban cities across the North American collective. Our empire will do that. Our public-private partnership, democratic Republican empire will do that, because we're gonna be black and white and mixed and Aspies in the 10, the 50, and the 63, and all who join us as allies, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, So back to finalize on Aspiness, we have these characteristics. We have three main problems that face us the most. Lack of friends. We don't have a lot of friends. But, my solution is friends with benefits only. My solution is friends with benefits only, That is my solution. friends with benefits only. My solution is friends with benefits only from now on. And that is my solution. For me, it is friends with benefits only, and that is just my solution. So I have a solution. Don't want to waste anybody's time, although Aspies like myself, we don't have lots of friends. For me, it's friends with benefits from now on, or pledge your allegiance, our family, and that is the solution. One of the second problems is we suffer more from depression and suicidal, 9 times higher, although we're a small fraction of a community, 9 times more from depression and being suicidal. I was depressed, I was suicidal, I crossed Canada coast to coast, I crossed Canada coast to coast, having crossed Canada coast to coast, back of course in 2017, now I'm marking 8 years, celebrating. I think we already arrived on the 16th of August, we were already there, and of course being that we arrived, that is of course something when 2017, before that, for like 3 years, I was depressed, suicidal, and I crossed Canada coast to coast in 2017, and that event made me change my whole life dynamics, That was one of the turning points, of course, in my life. Turning points in my life. That is what we have to be doing, and that, and have to be spurring, of course, on the gratitude of all this civilizational complex where we are together. So I was depressed, I was suicidal, and I got out of that depression. I got out of being suicidal by traversing Canada coast to coast. In August 2017, I went to BC, British Columbia. Same year in September, we went to Nova Scotia, Halifax. So basically cross Canada coast to coast, that 2017. So that was a major event, of course, in my life. 2017, of course, when I crossed Canada coast to coast, ocean to ocean. So that was, of course, the event where, of course, completely changed my whole life. The dynamics, of course, of my life changed, and that's when I established the strongest esprit de corps in my whole community, and that is something which, of course, we have to do, and we have to appellate, of course, in the interjectionality, of course, of where we are, in all the dynamics where we involve ourselves, of course, with the mustering of our forces for the North American Collective, of course, for the North American civilizational complex, of course, to do and to be, of course, interjectionally and impeding, so that we do not impede in each other's sovereignty and, of course, intellectual capabilities, which we have as Aspies, because we can be very intellectually, of course, capable and able, and even some quantify Asperger's. I looked at the ABC documentary a bit. I have to watch it again. That Asperger's is not, of course, an evolutionary process. Now, I'm not going to be able to dictate myself where Asperger's is an evolutionary process, or it's a step in mankind's evolution, but nonetheless, ABC documentary, the ABC from the United States, the ABC's documentary makes that assessment, makes that pronunciation, makes that dictum, it really states that Asperger's is really an evolutionary process in mankind. Now, I don't know about that. That's a bit, I cannot pronounce, I'm not really an expert in neuroscience, in psychology, psychiatry, and neuroscience, predominantly science of the brain. But an ABC documentary of about 6 or 7 years ago, just before COVID, came out stating that Asperger's actually, it's a step, an evolutionary process of mankind. That's why there's not a lot of Aspies, but there has been, it's a new 20th century, and the causes again are inconclusive, hereditary biological, or genetic and environmental factors combination of genetic and environmental factors, of environmental and genetic factors. So this combination might be the motive, the causes for Asperger's, although the causes is inconclusive and there's no medication. I don't require a lot of support. Aspies generally, because of our special interests that preoccupy most of our daily habits, routines in a ritualized routine. We have these ritual-like routines, Aspies, and I don't mind change that much, but I will have my ritualized routines and working out, training, exercising. That is fitness, sports. Dancing is my favorite sport, and creating rock and roll songs because I love rock and roll, and I always sing that rock and roll, for the farmers, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, the plumbers, the electricians, the bakers, and all those workers of the collective, you know, who get it a little bit on the go now, and who get a little bit of that transitional point in time where they change jobs or not, and another beauty red. And I had many jobs. It's just maintaining them. I had jobs which lasted 4 months, or 3 months, or a few weeks, few months. That is a general aspiness, because we're different. So us, it would be just ideal to do the job and what the job requires with the most professionalism which we can, that 4 hours shift, 8 hour shift, 12-hour shift, without getting into too much personal. That would be ideal, I guess, for Aspies. And then when you go home, you're a citizen, no longer an employer. You could, you know, do whatever you want as long as it doesn't harm none. You can, if you're an adult, between adults, you can express your sexuality. And if you're a man, a woman, a man, 50-50. I am androgynous pansexual. Don't waste my time, I won't waste yours. Friends with benefits only. I'm not sexually frustrated, anything like that. If I would be, I would discuss it. I'd discuss it, and that's it. What it is. And that is just the go and the characteristics, of course, to be. But I'm not sexually frustrated, and I have a. I'm not gonna look so that there's no youth. I even masturbated pretty hardcore today. If I get married, I don't mind being being androgynous pansexual. If I'm gonna be a cuck, C-U-C-K, I'm gonna be the greatest cuckold in the universe, you know. If I'm gonna be a cuckold, I'm gonna be the greatest cuckold, husband, whatever. Husband, wife, I guess, you know. I guess I'm the husband and the wife of the empire, you know. So I'm the wife and the husband of our empire. I'm the husband and the wife. Mama, pops, bro, sis of the empire, you know. Being 50-50, whatever the case may be. That would be ideal for Aspies, fellow Aspies? If we could just go whatever we need to do. Professionalism, without the personal, you know, then I guess Aspies would dominate the market. We would be 100% employed, because we wouldn't have the, you know, where are you from and what your parents do, and childhood memories, and this and that, and you know, these things. I guess would be more limited, because if I'm to discuss, I'm probably just gonna discuss my special interests, you know, and probably in the jobs that I had, if I was singing maybe rock and roll to people, then they went gossiping and say, hey, the dude's singing some weird rock and roll, and because that's basically what I know, or geopolitics, and maybe I was just discussing some theories from the Cold War and whatever, and they were discussing other things, and you know, we're weird Aspies, so that problem is the 3 problems is lack of friends with benefits only, you know, lack of friends with benefits only, you know, lack of friends. That's why friends with benefits only, of course, and being high unemployment factor is very high, of course, among Aspies, very high, 80%, and the high depression and suicidal rate, that of course, something which it is, something which we have to fix in the matter that we can fix. And there are solutions, and we got the paradox, of course, that I have, of course, the solution, that what it is. Now, of course, to get, of course, the solution and the appellation, of course, of all the solutions vis-a-vis as I cross this bridge, when I'm gonna come back. That is where we have to be, and that is where we have to appellate, of course, where we are in the dictum, of course, of all our generational conclusions, of all our domains, and of course the beautiful king who now rises and now sets, you know, who now rises and now sets. King. Now rises and now sets, and I'm a piece of dust, and we need to build bridges, train conductors, butchers, electricians, plumbers, construction workers. Let's build the 4. Let's build bridges between Aspies and neurotypicals, because we got a lot of work to do. And of course, especially build those 44 tunnels across our empire, the fusion of Canada, that would be ASAP, to fuse Canada and United States into the complex. Is the Sabbath, the beautiful sun. And now we're gonna go back to my headquarters, because I'm getting a bit on the hungry side. So that is just Asperger's. Aspie characteristics, of course, our odd, weird characteristics, but we have to build these bridges. So, hey, imagine bridges, highways, all this civilization is the privilege of having electricity, running water. That was my thesis back in 2023. The privilege of civilization. The privilege of civilization. And now in Canada, I'm interested to see what that strike is all about. Maybe I'm going to focus a special commission. Anybody wants to commission, blah, 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 blah. Some work. Maybe, of course, commission. I'm curious what is going to be happening with the supposed 10,000 airline workers. But like I said, I'm generally pro-labor and love, and pro-work, pro-workers, and I'll survive myself with 11,000. Last year I survived on $11,000, 2024. So thank you to all who made it that we have a social safety net. And when you get that in Canada, United States, when you get that social safety check, monthly or whatever you get, you got to be mindful that it's thanks to also the 20th century, someone who did a lot of labor. A lot of labor and established that, and now we seem that we have more problems. So now we're going to focus on solutions. So yes, Aspies and myself included have problems, lack of friends. I've been depressed and suicidal. I have no longer that issue for years and years and years. I encourage all to work out, train, exercise regularly. And we need, of course, to mass finance fitness across the North American Collective, as I got this big backpack on my back myself now. And, sometimes we got to go that way to see. I guess we can go that way a bit and then go back in to see a little bit of that fruits or not, and maybe next time, hey? Now let's go. Now we turn it, and I guess we're just gonna quantify a little bit towards the sun and come in and out in many ways. So you need to focus now on the DRT, the depth diffusion theory, which is of course the solution. Oh, let me see that bunny. I gotta get a little whiff of, hey buddy, don't run. Hey, ran away. I got a little bit of a pull towards the wilderness, and I always get a little bit of my smile quadruples when I come here, because I get a little bit of whiff of wilderness after getting hard in that concrete. And I am for the environment, the creation of the DGA, Dancing Goddess Army, which I am calling all to support for years and years and years and years and years now. I'm gotta be grateful for a lot. I survived COVID in 2020, between 2020 February and March. COVID for me was like death, pestilence, and disease. And you got those big Thelema ones. Those are, of course, all the transmission lines, which we gotta salute the workers of the 20th century. And we're open for vulnerabilities now. And it seems like the Putin and Trump summit, as I'm calling for the 9/11 North American Summit, Concordium for World Peace, the establishment of our Imperial Republic via public-private partnership, and the two complementary covenant and cooperative institutions to be laid solid in the foundations thereof, as we are emergent to be, in the conclusiveness and of course the interactive, of course, of the domain where we are now. And I admire these beautiful flowers, because I love that yellow. And just the beauty and what's the scent, it's like refreshing. And I just love, because I love to go to my second home, the Mistress Mount Royal, and we were there yesterday. My long videos, sometimes short videos, so I guess I do long hour-long videos, and then I do, of course, the second videos, the few seconds of 1-minute videos, and that's how we got to roll. And always gonna check a little bit of, what's that? I have no idea what that is there, but it doesn't seem like it's very, very good. What is that? Wow, is that aliens? Is that an alien? That an alien? That an alien? Are those aliens? I'm not sure, but they kind of look a bit alien, eh? If you think about it, in terms of the dynamics of how they look. What is that? Is that MOLD? Wow, look at that. I'm trying to figure what that is, to be honest. I don't know. Oh, it's because I see it's like gestating, and maybe it's not a little bit of the gestation which happened and occurred is transgressive to the plants, or it was a big spiders. I don't see any spiders per se, but of course suffice it to say that it's problematic in the appellation, of course, where we are, in all the life forms that we see. But see, I don't think I ever saw anything like this before in my life. Have you even see anything like this before in your life? It's kind of beautiful though, how it is, eh? Kind of looks like Mother Nature is a bit of a healing process. See, of course, in this, the black and the white there, see the black and the white kind of reminds me where I used to live before 2014. My memory goes on the black whitish, of course. I have that raw retrograde amnesia, but you can check how it is there, the mold. See the black and the white together? And I guess that's mold, but in many ways it kind of seems regenerative, that this is a regenerative self-healing type of process a little bit, not to get too mystical, but of course I do say the words for the goddess, G-O-D-D-S-S, and of course the goddess is ever present in the go, and that is just something which we have to be thinking about, of course, as we are an international development of the North American Plateau Collective to refurbish Mother Nature, and always by the DGA, the Dancing Goddess Army's establishment, I believe we can. So now I'm just going to focus on the DRT. Super important that you focus on what I'm going to say next and leave the baggage at the door, and know that my geopolitics is of course for the North American Collective. All my initiatives, protocols, loving these beautiful yellow flowers includes that. But of course I gotta say, restate, because I do, that I predicted what's happening now back in 2019. In 2019, I predicted that there is going to be an international conflagration on the horizon. And I created, made, and produced a workout training program system exactly to go with such a scenario where we would have a international conflagration. In other words, a World War III. I have proof. I have posted it online back in 2019. I predicted that there was going to be an international conflagration back in 2019. And so made, created, and produced a workout training program system, which of course requires no equipment, and of course which requires no equipment, and which of course requires no equipment, of which I'm proud of myself to have even made successfully done more than 372 sessions myself. Have of course done more than 372 sessions, you know. I have myself performed successfully more than 372 sessions. I have myself performed more than 372 sessions back of course in 2019. You heard that correct. I have proof, I have the 100 videos, and as much as I have the proof for those videos are posted in the small video clips, which you can see from last week, 2 weeks ago, and it's going to come in the coming days, weeks, and months ahead. Of course, I will post those videos because you see a workout training program from 2019, which I developed to go hand in hand with the World War III scenario, and which I discussed the World War III scenario on different videos where you can see me discussing. So I predicted what's happening now. That's what I am. I'm not just an artist, athlete, a mystic who knows my reincarnations, past lives. Sometimes I was born a man, a woman, and a woman, a man. Right here on this island, I lived between 1688 and 1735. I was born in the United States thrice. Once as a woman, twice as a man. When I was born as a man, I served in the United States Armed Forces. Twice, two different wars, 156 years apart. The wars were 156 years apart, and let me make some of that red, and that's what we gotta get doing with that, because I love some of that red, you know, and that is something which we have to get doing on that, and always appellative, always, of course, integrally. That is something which we have to do, and which we have, of course, to dynamic our situational position as part of the North American Collective, and all who come to join us here, that we are a new emergent civilizational collective, which is not totally divorced, but is distinct from Western civilization. That is something which, of course, you have to appellate and integrate. All right, check out those beautiful. Is that chamomile? Beautiful, beautiful. There's a bee. I'm gonna let you be because I love you. Go back to work. Yeah. And this is my work, although today is a resting type of work, but also kind of emergency, because although it's the Sabbath, I'm concerned about the Air Canada situation, and I have some questions. And how much does the CEO of Canada make in the past 4 years, 3.5 years, in the past 5 years since COVID, and if the CEO is the same or not, if the CEO changed, that is something which I would be surprised to know. I would be wanting to know a little bit about more information, and I guess we're not going to be able to see the sunset. I wanted to see the sunset. Is it gonna be, maybe that's what I wanted to go, that's why I took a turn here, to see the sunset, and of course to see if we can see a little bit of that sunset with it. But it's always for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the train conductors, and all those involved in the production and distribution of food, all those lovers, the bakers. What's that? The bakers, the truckers, the electricians, the plumbers, all those involved in the production, distribution of food, and all those, of course, Air Canada employees. They're up to, they've been on some strike, there's been some intervention, order back to work. It seems that if that was the case for me from now on, I gotta revise, but it seems that it was fast, It seems that it was fast, and I have to balance what were the requests and how much was the CEO and the executives making. to make a decision, right? Because I'm not totally selfless, eh? I'm not totally selfless, but I'm not totally selfish either, because I struggle, suffered, and I know poverty. I've been rock bottom in the years. I've been depressed, suicidal, and I've been rock bottom, I guess, and now I gotta say gratitude for my anonymous friend for all the good things that I have. And civilization is a privilege, and I take every day carpe diem, every day since I died of COVID. And if you want to be my friend with benefits, you're black, you're white or black, you're a man, you're a woman, we can do that gridiron special loving and reduce some of the feelings of the NFL, National Football League, NHL, National Hockey League, NBA, National Basketball Association, MLB, of course. That is a reduction of the cost, and please give some tickets to the public workers, so pick up the garbage, the recycling, the compost. I worked on the compost project between 2018 and 2019 for about 4 months and some weeks. So that was an experience, and paid work, not volunteering, because I love volunteering. But I've been on a fitness journey, and with my ritualized routines, don't mind incorporating some volunteering, and that's just what it is with that. And incorporating some volunteering, it's always something which I have to do, and which I have to, of course, appellate in all the civilizational complexes of which we have on the go, and see if we get a little bit of that sun here. That's why we came here, for the sunset. And let's see, sunset and sunrises and sunsets. Oh yeah, we can't go further because down there begins private property, but up to here we're allowed. And of course, not too much of the sunset. Gotta salute the train conductors. I thought we were gonna catch with the sun smiling, but I guess we gotta come earlier. Now we're gonna get back to Hekoda's discussing the DRT. Super important that I discuss the DRT fully. We catch the sun on the other side. See, sun now rises and now sets. Every second there's a sunrise and a sunset somewhere in the world, if you think about it. So as I encourage you all to work out, train, exercise, leave the baggage at the door. I'm not only a mystic artist athlete, and being that I'm androgynous pansexual, has my sexuality and I guess gender being 50-50, male, female, half-half. Get that rocket, little scar, a little bit of that good loving. Got rock and roll sometimes gets high up, rocket 10, 9, 8, countdown, gets rocket, God is blessed, God bless, and God is kiss our empire. And friends with benefits only, gotta be 18 plus. If you want to rock and roll, we rock and roll good. Some good rock and roll loving, and I get lustful, I get that I don't make pretense that I don't have, of course, all the that I don't have the that I'm totally selfless, I'm totally selfless, totally selfless. We gotta get drilling on that, and that's how we're gonna get on that drill, to get it for the finance, and getting for the love, and getting for that, of course, to appellate in our circumstantial positions where we have, of course, to do the dynamics, and do, of course, all the appellatives and all the love side which we have to get on now, and get it for those also who are financially struggling, and sing a little bit of rock and roll for the rehabilitation as I sing that rock and roll for my brothers and sisters, boys and girls in blue, and armed forces who got a raise. How much did that raise go? How much? So that is the percentage, of course, in percentages, of course. So as I sing that rock and roll for the workers and the boys and girls in blue, I was going to sing, because nobody's perfect. Our institutions for security are not perfect. That's why my institutions for the 21st century public-private partnership, universal revolutionary centrism best. So of course what we have, of course where we interject the dynamics, of course, of the solutions, where we are from proposals and discussions of the past years to actually implementing my Trinity theories, the DRT specifically, in all the appellations where we have now. So now I gotta say that I also sing that rock and roll for those who do their criminal rehabilitation. For those who do their criminal rehabilitation, take their second chances. Of course, take their second chances and do their criminal rehabilitation there. Oh my gosh, there's white prunes, they're going to waste. They're falling on the ground, What's happening there? Nobody's picking them up or something like that. I'm not sure, but it seems like they're going to waste there. Right? Whatever the case may be. So it's something which we have to interject, and of course we have to apply that. And Well, now we've got, we have, of course, to do in the appellation, of course, to interject all the possibilities, of course, all the interactions where we are with each other to get it on the go, to make that rock and roll with the in and out, and in the plurality, of course, of the setting of our civilizational complex towards the concordium, of course, where we have the DRT, for dead refusion to. So yeah, as I sing that rock and roll for the boys and girls in blue, I sing that rock and roll for my brothers and sisters. Proud of you, just like that heart there. Proud of you when you do your criminal rehabilitation and you effing take your second chances. When you take your second chances and you take your second chances and you turn your life around from a life of crime, from a life of XYZ, doing bad, turn your life around. And we need you because we're going to build together the 44 mass underground subterranean cities, the 44 tunnel structures and mass subterranean cities in case of a thermonuclear war, because we're on the verge of a potential nuclear war. I think that Russia and Ukraine, we might not be so hopeful for peace, but I have hope. That's why I'm calling for the September 11th World Peace Summit. September 11th World Peace Summit. September on the mountain, Mount Royal, from our headquarters of the Dancing Goddess and the Dragon Kingdom. So, but it might be an escalation, and the Middle East might escalate in conflict. In Africa, Latin America, Bolivia. What's happening in Bolivia? Gotta check that rock and roll, because it's in our backyard as well, as well with that coast to coast, ocean to ocean. And of course, our brothers and sisters who might start a war in China and Taiwan. China and Taiwan is an unresolved conflict from the 20th century, the Cold War. So that was exactly my premise, that these, of course, conflicts from the 20th century, especially from the Cold War period, which lasted between 1947, March 1947, and of course end of December 1991. So I placed the Cold War durations 44 years and 9 months, almost 45 years. Some say 46 years, some go start the Cold War 1946, summer 1946, whatever, spring 1947. I placed the Cold War between March 1947 and end of December 1991. So exactly 44 years and 9 months. I say almost 45 years, but not exactly 45 years, but almost 45 years. Almost 45 years, not exactly 45 years. I love these yellow flowers. Oh yeah, it's just so nice, and so tall, beautiful. Just quadruple my smiles is quadrupled by those flowers. So that is basically the appellation, the sensatory. What we have, of course, now leave the back to the door. We're entering my realm, my domain, my special interest, and I am an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst, theorist, thinker, philosopher, and strategist. My strategies are mainly for the North American complex, Canada, United States, extending into Mexico, Haiti, Dominican Republic, and what I call NATO complex. The NATO, of course, the NATO alliance is, of course, a part of our alliance, and of course I am a North American. This is my home. Personally, I do not consider myself a member of a diaspora, but we're of course part of the NATO complex, and we need to, of course, proponencies that we are part of the NATO complex. But my strategies are mainly for the North American collective, although they can be extended to the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, the NATO complex. So now the DRT, debt refusion theory. The DRT is the only solution, or something which resembles the DRT is the solution. Why do I make that statement? Because of the 4 major wild grapes. Let's taste. Ooh, bitter. Oh, they're so bitter. Now let them ripen some more. Come back next week. Wild grapes. They're good but bitter. Like, wild grapes here. These are all wild grapes, I'm gonna come with a bag once, because they're wild. They're a property of first come, first serve citizen. So, rush, take. I do grape juice, I do grape juice. Comes out pretty good from wild grapes. I didn't know they were already ready in August. Usually I take them September, October, even December. they're still ripe. Anyways, you see my videos from the past years that I do that. I boiled them, I washed them, I crushed them, I boiled them, and then I put them in. I put them in containers, and whatever. So I do wild grape juice. So, because of four main problems, economically, my DRT for both Canada and United States, and of course, before I go into the DRT, this next statement, hey bunny, hello V, what you running from me? I don't need to hunt you, want to play some games, eh? I don't know too many play games I can say, hey, what a bunny running away. I know rock and roll. And that is the point which I have to make before we go into the deep. These were prunes. All prunes, not all gone bad, but these were of course prunes. Are they good? Are they good to eat? I'm not sure. Maybe. Not sure if they're good. Maybe, I'm not sure. They're going bad though. Hey, look at that. They're going bad. Oh, they're nobody's property here. See, they're not on everybody's. They're for everybody, but they're not on. They're going bad. See that black and white mold. See, they're going bad like this black and white mold, but these are not on private property. This is public property. So first come, first serve. It's gonna take for me and my anonymous friend a bit. They're outside. They're public. These were. Oh yeah, I remember the story. These were planted by the Hydro-Quebec workers about 50 years ago. 44 years ago. So these are public, but I guess people are not taking them because half of them are going black and whitish mold. But I guess I can reach a bit. Let's see if I can. Let's taste one. Oh, this one's really ripe. Let's taste. Oh. No. That one was not so good. Sip. If I die, bury me, a third of me will Papa Crowley up in New Jersey, a third of me up in Mount Royal. Mount Royal. Third of me in the city of the pyramid. They're not that good. They're bitter. Maybe they need more time. But they go bad before. Last one. That one, yeah. That one, yeah. So we have to come back, I guess, exactly next week. But the thing is that it seems that they're going bad, you know? They're going bad instead of ripening. Although I got a good one. I guess you gotta get the good ones. Let me see that one. Even not. Okay, that's it. One more? Okay, one more. Which one will it be of the four here? This one. Okay, let's go. I don't know, it's not right, but I'm gonna eat it because I don't want to waste it. So they need more time. Oh. So those are the prunes. Prunes and all those. Actually, even those ones, they're not on private property. You got some wild grapes here also. Next time I'm gonna come with a bag. So those are actually planted by Hydro-Quebec. The story goes, because I asked somebody, were planted when these poles were. So thank you workers. When they were working on these poles, electricity poles in the 70s, I think the year was supposedly 1978, I was told, or 77. He said about 50, he said 50 years ago. So maybe in the 70s, right? 70, something like that. It said almost 50 years ago. So between 40 and 50 years, more than 44 years ago. Oh, I guess maybe if it was 77, 78, 79, or 1980, it's not such a big of a difference in terms of age and timelines. But nonetheless, they were planted by, of course, those who planted a little bit of those prunes. So, of course, the case was being that they planted, of course, some of those prunes. And, of course, there are the plantations, which for now yours truly has enjoyed the fruit of the labor, I guess. We have this fruit of the labor, which is the North American civilizational complex. Canada, United States, we need to fuse. And because of 4 problems, via my DRT best, the death refusion theory to fuse best to fuse via my DRT theory. So now I'm just gonna turn and we're gonna go snake a bit, left or right, left or right, left or right, and that's what we got. Here we're gonna turn our heads. We're gonna go in like that, and then we're gonna go in by the go, and that's how we gotta get doing on that rock and roll. And sometimes that's just how we have to get doing on that, you know, because it's something which we have to interject over the dynamics where we are, and the dynamics where we are, of course, interactive with the civilizational complex and where we are now at this point in time. And of course, at this point in time, we are, of course, that we have 4 main problems, and those 4 main problems, of course, are appellative to 4, but of course they can be categorized in different order, whatever order you want, of course, whatever order you want. For different individuals, sovereign individuals, the order might differ, but of course the 4 are so you can, I'm going to outline them in this order, where you can rearrange them for depending. But generally, for both Canadians and my brothers and sisters in the USA, we got these 4 main problems which affect us. 1 is a growing cost of living. The prices of everything, most everything is increasing. Price of butter, price of milk, price of cheese, price of bacon, price of lettuce, romaine lettuce, all the prices generally increasing. The rent increases as well. You know. The rent increases. So of course, due to the fact that of course the rent is increasing, that is of course the fundamental aspect which is it is, you know, the fundamental aspect which it is. So the fundamental aspect which it is, of course, is the fundamental aspects, of course, of where we got the technicality, the parts of the aspects where we are, of course, interjected to be. That of course the domain is that the growing prices of rents. Even my rent went up, but only between 6 and 10, you know, between 6 and 10. So basically the domain, the 4 problems, that is, in whatever order you will. Too fast to go Morse code, but maybe we live in a computer. You know, part of the life I know everything about supercomputers, microchips, satellite chats, science and technology. Everything to do with mathematics, of course, is what I do. So the dynamics are and is this, that these 4 affect the majority of the population of both Canada and the United States. That's why my DRT theory has to be implemented both for Canada and the United States simultaneously. So growing cost of rents, growing cost of living, stagnation of the salaries, and growing credit card indebtedness. So those 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, whether you place growing card indebtedness first, growing cost of living first, and of course whatever the other things may be, growing cost of living first, the growing credit card debt, and the stagnation of the salary, whether the stagnation of the salary, the growing credit card debt first, the transposition, of course, of the growing credit card debt. It could also be the growing indebtedness. So credit cards are being swiped now from Montreal to San Francisco. We got those times also. Somebody's maxing out their 4th credit card now, tonight, Saturday, going some of that strip clubs. Maybe I don't go to strip clubs, but I love dancing and don't know discrimination. And I remember going a few years ago because I love dancing and music, you know, but probably a weirdo. But give a discount. That's a beautiful color choice. Give some discounts to the truckers, please. Strippers. I don't know how the strip clubs are doing now, the clubs, and I want to go to circus, and the circus club is something where I gotta go with that circus club, you know, Montreal after hours. So let's go, me, Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Bill Gates, and of course Katy Perry, Tom Brady. Invite all the leaders of the free world. you know, Madonna. Now I'm gonna start naming names, whatever the case may be. Rock and roll. My favorite rock band is not that well known. It's called Death SS. They sing in English, but they're originally from Italy. From Italy, country of Italy, not the city in the United States. Italy, a country in Europe. And of course, because if you check around the US, you see that there's cities named Berlin, Germany and Palestine, and a lot of different names that correlate with geographical places outside of the US. There's a lot, Bethlehem, a lot of cities like that across. There's actually, I believe, 2 Berlins, Berlin, I believe there's 2 cities. Anyways, not gonna go into that. So the DRT, Debt Refusion Theory, stands for D, Debt, R, Refusion, T Theory. In my DRT is included integrated monetary integration theory. Monetary integration theory is, of course, is the financial theory which was implemented in the European Union in the 90s. In the 90s, of course, they were implemented. A house like this, I could split 50-50 with my anonymous friend. 1 month I could live above, and she can live above, and vice versa, or half-half. Above and now split 50-50, a house like that. I wish I could afford to give my anonymous friend a house by the river here, Montreal, HAWK, Hawk Island, Island of the Hawk. So, construction workers, we need to build a 4, and that's my will to build a 4. We're gonna build together. Now I'm gonna jump a bit. I'm just gonna say what I will to discuss. The 4, the Imperial People's Coliseum on the Canadian-US border, to be the biggest sports majestic arena ever built, of course, in the history of mankind, of course, and of course in all the propositions where we are, of course, to build, of course, the dynamics, to build the North American Collective, the Imperial Coliseum, to be 11 times bigger than the Caesars Superdome. The Caesars Superdome, of course, used to be known as the Mercedes-Benz Dome. Before that, the Mercedes-Benz, of course, had the appellation that the Mercedes-Benz was known, of course, as the Louisiana Superdome. And of course, the Louisiana Superdome was known before. Well, actually changed names several times, just like I changed names, but still officially, of course, to pay that people to change my names. Flag spotted. Canadian flag, whenever I spot the flag. Flag spotted, always got it on me. Best if we merged 13 and the 50 my way. So let's build on the Canadian-US border the Imperial People's Coliseum. The Imperial People's Coliseum to be 11 times bigger than the Caesar Superdome, where my 49ers lost to the Ravens by 3 points. One of my favorite Super Bowls is known as Super Bowl 47, aka Blackout Ball, aka Bro Ball, aka Blackout Ball, aka Bro Ball. Surname, of course, Harbaugh Ball, the Harbaugh Ball, the Blackout Ball. That was, of course, one of my favorite Super Bowls, although my 49ers lost. And me and Donald Trump are going to fight and inaugurate the boxing match, by a boxing match, the biggest ever Imperial Coliseum for sportists in perpetuities, to be built on the Canadian-US border. Beautiful yellow flowers, gives me a big smile, quadruples, with the colors nice. 8+ on the garden, super nice. It's like a little a third of a circle there, kind of cool. On the reverse side, that's kind of cool. Usually it's the opposite, right? Patterns. So, I'm building the Forgotten Goddess Temple. GODDSS. This house is also nice. I would split 50-50 on it with my anonymous friend. And of course the Imperial People's Coliseum and the Forgotten Goddess Temple, GODDSS. The Forgotten Goddess, GODDSS. Because I created me surviving COVID, surviving being depressed and suicidal, me getting out of being depressed. Me, of course, coming out of moving there from that moldy place, surviving, and all the surprise attack and the scars and the trauma which I live with, connected to the goddess, GODDSS. It's the God bless, goddess kiss our empire, and it's the goddess, of course. Goddess bless, goddess bless. God kiss, goddess bless, and let's build a forgotten goddess GODDSS temple on the Canadian-US border, and of course to build another one, the Rainbow People's Palace, Rainbow People's Palace, Rainbow People's Palace, the Rainbow People's Palace, to build it, the Rainbow People's Palace, of course, the Rainbow People's Palace, the Rainbow People's Palace, the Rainbow People's Palace, you know, that's what it is with that. And when we got that extra, God, ain't no fucking like any motherfucking motherfucker. By king. So that is, of course, the dynamics. The dynamics. The dynamics of all the So that is the dynamics. That is the dynamics. You won't. No, Mom. It's guaranteed. It's a little guy. That's what it is with that, and that's all we got, you know. Something which we have to understand fully, that we have to co-equivalent, of course, where we are in the position, where we are now. We're just so vulnerable, the majority of the population, that we have to implement the DRT, but as a centrist public-private partnership agreement, of course, we have to. We really have no choice. There it is, flag spotted again. Flag spotted, got, of course, that little rock and roll, and flag spotted with the go, and that is something which we have. Show the flag, show the flag. So the DRT, you know, the DRT, that's just something which we have, you know. There's something which we gotta do, you know, to get it on the go, you know. The Connie. She got. I know. I like what they did here. It's kind of nice. Public workers. Remember in the past videos, of course they changed the aqueducts. So gotta salute that work, you know. Gotta salute that work. Because they changed the aqueducts, which needed changing. Lots of aqueducts. So if you check in the past videos, took some brains and muscle, and that's what, of course, money is, financing is, to change all this on the ground. So that's rock and roll, man. Good job, people, workers, and that's how we have to do, and that's just how we have to do, and that's just how we have to get doing on that, you know. Yeah. Back to the privilege of civilization. Gonna hydrate good. I'm gonna discuss the DRT, but gonna let it usually 10 to 20 seconds because there is, and yeah, this is a workout because the backpack is sore and I got those weights, so I'm always good smiling when I sweat a bit and when I see people just going about their daily business, in a very good manner in the neighborhood, and some jogging, exercising, always love that, and in a peaceful, orderly manner, appreciating the public safety and appreciating the public domain. And I gotta myself, of course, be for myself and for the other, because we're in integrated manner, the individual sovereign citizen with everybody else who's doing their roundabout daily Saturday Sabbaths roundabouts, and some jogging, some going about with the cars, going to shop and going to the restaurants. And it's always a pleasant way to see and walk around my neighborhood and get a little bit of that loving. And my cousins, my sisters, all my brothers and sisters, not just from Quebec, Canada, Quebec, but from the North American Collective, because my brothers and sisters from the US are my brothers and sisters from the US as well, HYDRAD. Yeah, back. Okay, so no more delays. Straight to the DRT. The debt refusion theory, of course, contains monetary integration theory. Monetary integration theory is the financial theory which was implemented in the European Union back in the 90s. Of course, the Germans, Germany, Italy, France, Belgium, and other countries, they destroyed their national central bank. They got rid and they destroyed their national central bank. They no longer have central banks as they did before. They have the ECB, which acts as a central bank for the other banks, right? It acts as a central bank for the other banks. It's a central bank of central banks, if you will, in that appellation, that statement integrally. So we're going to do the same, because in my DRT theory, which has to be implemented again, Canada, United States, binationally joint, inside my DRT theory, the debt refusion theory, of course, outlines and is integrated monetary integration theory. And of course, the four problems, in whatever order you place them, is making us for both Canada and United States. And Canada and United States is, of course, the same problem, which it is. And of course, the growing cost of debt, the indebtedness, because credit cards have reached, of course, a megaplex, mega concentration, super concentration. The majority of the people are, of course, concentrated, and they have, of course, growing credit card debts. The cost of everyday living, the bacon, the sausage, the cheese, the bread, the milk, all the other things are going up. The other one, the third one, of course, is the growing cost of rents. The growing cost of rents, even my rent went up between 6 and 10. The other one is the stagnation of the salaries. Look at the skunks. Skunks. Gotta watch it for the skunks. Gonna get sprayed, we're gonna get sprayed with that. That is why we're gonna get sprayed with the skunks. They're beautiful creatures, but they are smelly creatures, eh? They're beautiful black and white. I love that black and white and red combination, but he's crossing the street. It's cheering up a little bit for the skunks. They're smelly with that, and that's why I gotta get on that smelly with that rock and roll. See the skunks there traversing, and gotta get doing with that, and gotta get doing on that XYZ this, and that's how we have to get doing on that love and rock and roll, and that's what we do. That's why we gotta get that rock and roll with it, and don't break your neck. That's what it is. So that is, of course, sevenfold. Sevenfold. Siete vezes. Sevenfold. I got something untold. So back to the DRT, the debt refusion theory, the DRT, the debt refusion theory, for the creation, of course, of the UE, the Universal Exchange Unit. Of course, that's what it is with that, and that's what it is. So that's what we have to do. The DRT, net refusion theory. The DRT. There's no way we can get out of that. So now I'm going to discuss the DRT fully and inclusively. So prepare for the DRT, and then we're going to switch it again a little bit to that French, you know, because we in la belle Privee, so that's what we're going to get doing with that, the DRT, and something which, of course, we're going to have to appellate, of course, in the integral aspects of life where we are, of course, in the domain where we are the circumvision, of course, of all our general dynamics, which we have, of course, to get it on the go and integrate, of course, in the loving other things where we are, of course, to get the mobilization of the population, of course, integrally where we are with the domain, of course, to get a little bit of that fun. Always fun now here. Super important to get some fun and loving sides, and it's always nice to get it on the go. So we pass by here by the street. We gotta get on that street salutations, and it's always good and fun to see some good of that, and that's what it is for that. And got some, of course, some books, and you know, I wrote children's books myself, but didn't have the $500 to publish it, and I've experienced reading to children. For some reason, I don't remember personally, but because I watched documentaries on 9/11, I don't remember where I was on 9/11. I don't remember where I was, but I remember that George Bush was reading children's books. I think from my writings, because I have journals, in 9/11 proper, I was finishing high school. Because I think there's some book reading going on there, a little bit of that book reading, I think that's on the screens, and I don't know for sure, but of course, whatever the case is, it makes me think of a few books which I've wrote. Mostly my books, of course, are related, of course, to, of course, the civilizational complex, and of course to the firefighters, the butchers, and all this little things which have to do with civilization and nature. My themes, of course, involved a little bit of exercise and sports and washing of the hands and offering some gratitude to mommy and daddy, to the parents in my children's books, and they're a bit fun interplay of words. Anyways, I hope I get to publish them one day. I have this kind of series which I wanted to launch, and you know, just I couldn't have the $500 to pay for a literary agent, but that is what it is, and that's just how we have to do, and the consequential ability, of course, of all our life as an artist. I do write. I have written children's books, and I can write. I'm pretty good as an artist like that, but just financially stressed, and was able to get the $500 to pay to get the process with the literary agent going. So now what I know now, I'm going to put the DRT. So back to the DRT, the debt refusion theory. Focus on the DRT. So due to the four main problems which are facing the majority of the population, which are, one is, of course, the growing cost of rents. My rent also went up between 6 and 10. I'm not going to say how much, but my rent went up also between 6 and 10. So the growing cost of rent, the growing cost of living, the cost of bacon, cheese, butter, bread is increasing every day. We see prices are increasing, even the laundry soap. The stagnation of the salaries, and the fourth one, in whatever order you put them, is, of course, the growing credit card debt. So these four economic, financial, commercial problems for both Canadians, my brothers and sisters in the USA, for both Canadians and my brothers and sisters in the USA, So that's why we have to implement the DRT, and inside the DRT, debt refusion theory, the DRT, my DRT, paradoxically on the table is the solution for the North American collective, because the majority of the population suffer because of the four main problems, economic problems. One, the stagnation of the salaries, coupled with the growing cost of rents. Even my rent went up, but I cannot complain because for me, I find it fair. The growing cost of living, the bacon, the cheese, the butter is increasing. And the fourth dimension is, of course, the other fourth dimension, which is, of course, the stagnation of the salaries and the credit card debts. The credit card debts with that. So that is, of course, something which we have to proposition about, and we have to position ourselves integrally to fully understand the problem with which we are faced now. the problems with which we are faced now in our collective civilizational complex, and of course all the dynamics where we have now to interpolate and integrate in the dynamics of our wellness. So the DRT explained the debt refusion theory. I'm going to explain it. And the DRT integrates the MIT monetary integration theory, which was, of course, is the theory which was implemented in the European Union. Germany, Italy, France, Belgium, and other countries, not just those four, but other countries, they destroyed their national currencies. They created in the 90s the ECB, and they destroyed the national banks. They no longer have the Bank of national central banks, just like the Bank of Canada, Bank of Israel, Bank of China, of course, other banks, Bank of Egypt, or of course the Federal Reserve of the United States, or Banco de Mexico. They no longer have national central banks in many, many, many countries of the European Union. They have the ECB, the European Central Bank, which acts as a central bank for central banks. So that is basically fundamentally what it is. So here, because of those four problems, we have to implement my DRT theory, the debt refusion theory, fundamentally for both Canada and the United States. And the United States. So that is just integrally in the part, of course, where we are to be integrally positioned, because we are at a point of emergency Monday. There could be a financial economic collapse, both in Canada and the United States, because we see already the cuts in the public service and the cuts of jobs are happening across the North American collective. So, of course, we have to fully implement the DRT theory as a mass public-private partnership. My brother citizens of BlackRock, BlackRock and Blackstone are two financial institutions which differ from the 1989 split, but it requires my brother Scorpio Bill Gates and a mass public-private partnership of the banking financial institutions and the, of course, tech institutions that exist, the top Forbes institutions and the public governments, both Canada and the United States, on the right, on the left, and in the center, because us, Canada and the United States, reciprocally, we must have as the number one priority to have the best, most cordial economic, social, financial, military relations with each other. That is just the constant political constant, just like the pi symbol, which is represented by that two-headed end, which is the letter for Normandy, natural neurodivergence, or neutral natural neurodivergence, or normal, the N, letter N, and of course that's how our empire, of course, will have that type of N, two-headed N, two-headed N, just like that N symbol, which represent the 3.1416 appellations, and that's just what it is, the 3.1416, which is a continuum for the relation between the circumference and the diameter of a circle. And that is just what it is. And that is why, of course, we have to appellate integrally in order integrational aspects, where we have, of course, to get the dynamic, of course, of all our powers to fuse Canada and the United States via the DRT and the CIT, Citizen Integration Theory, and the DFT, Democratic Fusion Theory. And now back to the DRT. So because of those four main problems, which affect both Canadians and the United States very much at a similar parallel percentage level of the population, although we are 44 million, the United States is about 350 million, about 9 times more. So we're going to take, now I'm going to explain, we're going to take all the public and the private debt. My $10,000 coast to coast, ocean to ocean, yours, well, my debt, your debt, our debt, all the debt, public and private debt, we're going to, of course, take it, all the public and the private debt, we're going to take it coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and we're going to refuse it. We're going to refuse the debt. So we're going to refuse the debt. We're going to convert it into United States dollar debt. All the public and the private debt, we're going to convert it into a public-private, the public and private debt. Both public and private debt. So my 10,000, I don't have credit cards myself. I have a credit line to the Royal Bank of Canada. I have a credit line to the Royal Bank of Canada, the RBC. So of course we're going to take it public-private partnership. Of course we're going to take all the public and the private debt. We're going to convert it. All the public and the private debt, we're going to convert it, right? In the United States dollar, we're going to set, of course, an interest rate level of 10%. 10% interest maximum. First, we're going to take all the public-private debt, we're going to convert it into US dollars, right? All the public and the private debt, we are going to convert it into US dollars. All the public and the private debt, we are going to convert it into US dollars. So my $10,000, your $10,000, whatever you have as debt, I have as debt, all the public and the private debt, we're going to convert it into US dollars. We're going to add it with the public-private debt of the US together, because we have to implement my DRT theory, the debt refusion theory, which integrates in it the monetary integration theory for both Canada and the United States. We could add Mexico afterwards, Haiti, Dominican Republic, all the North American collective civilizational complex where we are, of course, integrated to go, and integrated, of course, to rock and roll with that. So all the public and the private debt, we're going to integrate it. We're going to integrate it, we're going to convert it, all the public-private debt into the US dollars, add it with the US. Then we're going to create the Imperial Republic Central Bank, a new central bank just like they created in the 90s, the European Central Bank, the ECB. We're going to create a new currency called the UE, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot UE, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot UE. The universal exchange will have the value of the US dollar. We're going to set an interest rate level of 10%. After that is going to be a new financial relations. There's not going to be able to be on credit cards, any line of credit, anything after that, more than 10% by maximum standard. This is going to be the Imperial lending standard, 10% maximum. Imperial Republic of the 10, the 50, the 63, beautiful garden, because we're going to fuse Canada and the United States. We're going to sign the Imperial Republic Constitutional Acts. We're going to create the DRT, and it can be expanded in the North American complex, expanded to NATO-centric. It could be transatlantic. We could do it, eh? Transatlantic, we can create the North America European Transatlantic Bank, Central Bank with the EU. All NATO member countries could be a secured currency. We could build super servers across NATO member countries, and we could have the translation equipment, and other countries can join this NATO alliance force if they will. But we could have, of course, the possibility to create a transatlantic currency, the UE, the universal exchange rate, because that's, of course, what money is. The universal exchange unit, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit. The U dot universal, U dot exchange, U dot unit. The UE, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot UE. The UE. The universal exchange unit is going to have the value of the US dollars. The value of the US dollar, of course, is going to be inside the UE. The universal exchange unit, that's what it's going to be. The universal exchange unit. So the UE is going to be this new currency. Is going to have the value of the US dollar. The value of the US dollar, of course, is going to be created by this UE, the universal exchange unit. So this universal exchange unit is going to have, of course, the value of the US dollar. The value of the US dollar, the value of the US dollar, That is just what it's going to be. The UE, the universal exchange unit. That is going to be the creation of this new central bank. The UE, the universal exchange unit. Nice bag here, see? With gold and black. I like the gold and black. Gotta be recycled though, because we have flora fauna. So if flora fauna goes into this, and I guess it's got that maple leaf. Thank you, Canada. Thank you, workers, butchers, bakers, nurses, for the empire. We're gonna fuse Canada and the United States by the UE. With the creation of the UE, the universal exchange, we're gonna get rid of the border, make a great census, a great North American census, Canada, United States. We're gonna make a great census, both Canada and United States, a great census, Canada, United States, Canada, United States, a great census for across the 10, the 50, and the 3, the 63, a great census. We're going to create a great census, do a great census, see both Canada and the United States, as we're going to get rid of the border, see who's been living here since COVID, I guess, to more than 5 years, 7 years, to see who has citizenship, who's been here, when did they arrive, and give some amnesty and some work, to build because by the creation of the UE and the implementation of my DRT, debt refusion theory, we're going to focus, of course, to get and to build, of course, rebuild North America, build social housing, and of course, we need, of course, to open, of course, all the world. And of course, we need to start building those 44 tunnels in case of a thermonuclear war, which could happen any minute. You wonder why China started building in the past 5 years, even 4 years. The mass increased from 400 nuclear warheads to about 550. That is about 44%. They increased, and they haven't built so many in decades, and now suddenly during COVID, during the past 3.5 years, they mass invested in building nuclear weapons and ICBM rockets, and they built the biggest, 11 times supposedly bigger than the Pentagon military headquarters and their infrastructure, whatever have you, and all the espionage and open, of course, the alliances, transnational alliances, which are of course happening overseas. It is something, of course, which we have, of course, to be in the dynamics of the societal affairs, of course, of the dynamics where we are, of course, to appellate and, of course, to integrate in all the dynamics where we are social, cultural, and, of course, the dynamics of our North American collective, where we are fundamentally the coming of our empire together. And, of course, by the creation of the UE, the Universal Exchange Unit, the UE, we're going to set an interest rate level of 10%, and that, of course, 10% could be lower. We're going to rebuild the infrastructure, mass finance, fitness, public-private partnership for mass financing fitness activities, credit some UEs, U.Universal, E.Exchange, U.Units, credit some UEs, credit some Universal Exchange Units, credit some Universal Exchange Units, credit some UEs to citizens via mass public-private partnership, create, of course, social credits for volunteering, all, of course, integrated public-private partnership, Imperial state and a public dragons, new 911 protocols for total SSD implemented via the DRT as well, create 2 new complementary covenant and cooperative institutions, the Dragon Army, of course, the Dragon Army, and of course we're gonna get on that Dragon Army, of course, to create, of course, this new plateau, and we need, of course, to put a little bit of a stop in mere emergency. While we do so, close the borders for a little bit, do a census, and while we establish the UE, we're gonna have a little bit of the new 911 protocols for total security, total service, total defense, and that's just what we're gonna do with it. So that is, of course, incrementally the strategies which need to be developed and conclusively which we have, of course, to get it on the go. And transnationally, that is, maybe I need this. Oh yeah, 2 jars. Gotta get on some 2 jars with that. Yes, I can clean them, mason jars. Always good to have some mason jars. Oh yeah, gonna wash them at home, but something which I gotta get. So that is the DRT, the debt refusion theory for, of course, the creation of the DRT. So we have to implement the DRT. There's no other choice but the implementation of the DRT due again to the multi-factors, the 4 factors: growing cost of rents, cost of the cost of rents going up, cost of living, the cost of course of the cost of rents, cost of living, stagnation of the salaries, and of course the other one being, of course, on the go with the stagnation of the salaries. And that is something which we have to appellate, of course, in the dynamics where we had the proposition, of course, to get those 4 problems solved and create a total empire for total security, total service, total defense with some joy. We're gonna also mass finance tourism across the 63. We're gonna get rid of the border, do a census, create the Imperial American perpetual union with Canada and United States, the 13. We're gonna add providentially, not one, Granddaddy Trump. I'm no Trump supporter, no fan, and my way to fuse Canada best, and it's Dragon versus Trump since 20. Dragon versus Trump, of course, since 2019, and of course that is something which you have to appellate and, of course, integrate in all the civilizational complex where we are today. We are, of course, in the modem apparatus, of course, to do and to see in perpetuous what is going on in the appellation of the world and in all our dynamics where we are, where we live, of course, to be, and to conclude with all the DRT. Debt refusion theory is the solution. We have, of course, to get the solution to appellate, and of course we have to integralize it in all our civilizational developments where we are and where we find ourselves to be now for tomorrow. The DRT, debt refusion theory for our empire. Let it be and let it rise together in this dynamic where we have the consequential prudence and Of course, I'm gonna be passing by the side there again because I want to see if the fridge has some food, and we're gonna get a little bit of that food if we are. Not gonna take any, but I'm just curious. Actually, if there's a little bit of dessert, we're gonna take. If there's no dessert, we're gonna congruously getting on the go with that. And the DRT for our empire, we're gonna create the two complementary covenant and cooperative institutions, the dancing goddess army and the dragon army. And I always love when we have a little bit of that rock and roll with it, and always love to see a little bit of that rock and roll and see a little bit of that fridge, so you can have a little bit of taste there, take some food, and getting on the appellation with it. And that's always something with our practicalities to get doing. And I always encourage all. You got the chicken ball, chicken soup. If you want chicken servings, stimulated flavor, should I try it? Maybe. There's two, one for me, one for my friend, I guess. One for me, one from our friend, that's it. Since there's two, I'm gonna take, and we're gonna switch to that French, and that's what it is. One for me, one for my anonymous friend. I wish I could just get, of course, to just put one time. I just want to fill that fridge up. And last time I gave some, I put some things yesterday, actually. Yesterday I put some sauce, and it was taken off because I didn't see it today, but so it was taken. So we need to appellate, and just thank you farmers, butchers, bakers, all those involved in the production, distribution of food. And you know, since I'm not even expecting much money in September, you know, but I'm expecting some extra work. I'm always open for business, but the business of the empire, which I'm laying the foundation with trillions of kisses, millions of marching steps, some rock and roll, and the DRT, debt row fusion theory. The DRT, again, gonna take all the public private debt. We're gonna create the UE, a new Imperial Republic. We're gonna fuse the 13, not one state. And yes, you bet the greatest states. It's gonna be the greatest states providentially, just like the 13 original. The king is absent, fellow Canadians, fellow citizen. I declare the king is absent. I declare that the king is absent. The king is absent. King is absent. Uncle Carney pledged allegiance to the King of England and his heirs in 2025. This should have been gone. All the pledging of allegiance by in the 90s. We should have been a republic since 1999. And that is when one of my Canadian citizenship cards dates from that. So that's more than 26 years. So I don't have a birth certificate. I can't find it in my. I don't have a birth certificate, and I can't find it. You know, that is just something which we have to appellate and we have to do. But that is just concomitantly where we are, and where we, of course, integrate in all our developmental relations. Where we are, of course, where we integrate, of course, to get it, the left or right, and the sphere, of course, of the left or right, and the butchers and the bakers to get it, of course, on the solutions where we are now. So that is just something where we are, of course, in the conclusiveness, of course, of the parts where we are, of course, to get doing on that left or right, and we gotta get it on that left or right polation now, where we are transmissive, and of course to cross the street safely and prudently, gotta turn the heads left or right. So that is just something where we are in concordiate, and of course to get, of course, the appellations and the DRT, because it's an emergency. It's an emergency, you know, being that it's an emergency in the conclusiveness of our emergency situation, and the status is that we are in an emergency. We can have a crash, of course, next Monday. We could have a crash next Monday. And that is just the appellation, of course, of the verbosity of whatever it is that we integrate ourselves in. And of course, all the integration that we are, to fully integrate all our wellness. And we have to implement the DRT. We have to. And there's paradoxically that I present on the table the solution for the empire, the creation of the two complementary covenant and cooperative institutions, the Dancing Goddess Army, the DGA, Imperial Integrated Dance League, parallel with the Imperial Integrated Dance League, to be for environmental action, and of course environmental action, and whatever the case may be, environmental action and education, the Imperial Integrated Dance League, parallel with the Imperial Integrated Dance League will be the Imperial SSD Legion. SSD Legion, the SSD Legion, Security, Service and Defense Legion, the Security, Service and Defense Legion, the SSD Legion, to be incorporated, of course, for total security, total service, total defense. 1% of the population of the coming 63, which we're going to fuse, do, of course, a census. We're going to see everybody who's been living here, of course, since 2020 or before 2017 or whatever the case may be, in all the situational complexes where we are. The dynamics of the future, of course, of the empire, in conclusion, is to be, of course, for total security, total service, and total defense. In the instrumentality, of course, that we have the appellation of the verbatim to, of course, implement the DRT as a mass public and private partnership, as a mass public and private partnership across the North American collective, as a mass public and private partnership across the North American collective. So this work, the Dancing Goddess and the Dragon Kingdom, is fundamentally a call for a mass public-private partnership to be implemented across North America to create, fuse Canada and the United States into this super imperial complex. And why, by the DRT, we're also going to mass finance citizens' fitness, mass finance tourism, and of course mass finance citizens to work out, to train, to exercise, and of course to do the appellation, of course, of all the circuitry which we have to build social housing and mass finance social housing and mass finance citizens' rehabilitation. So to be of service to the empire for the self, and for the empire for the self, and for our empire, as I guess the empire's chief priestess, and every imperial citizen of age, husband and wife, I guess, every imperial citizens of age, every empire's citizen of age, husband and wife, and Adrian, Hannah, Dragon, keep my name out of your mouth if it's not for a blessing. 50-50. Democratic Republic and Empire. Create the UE via the DRT. Implement the CIT for total security, total service, total defense. Coast to coast, ocean to ocean. Mass finance the building of the 4 Imperial integrated dance league with the Imperial integrated legions. Mobilize and have 1% perpetuum, 1 percentile of the population of all the 63 states. And we might add 64, 65 later on. You know. Mexico, if they will, to join our empire, and of course 1% of the population to be for total security, total service, total defense, based on my new 911 Dragon Total Security, Total Service Defense Accord and the CIT Citizen Integration Theory. Pledge allegiance, our family. We're going to switch a little bit to that French because we're in La Belle Province. Pledge allegiance, our family. Gonna switch a bit to that French because where we at in Montreal, La Belle Province. So rock and roll. Love you. Bienvenue samedi, la soirée. Je vous encourage, Québécois, Québécoises, à faire l'entraînement physique. J'ai la gratitude. J'ai le sac à dos qui est lourd un peu dans le dos. Fait que je fais un entraînement un peu prolongé pour un samedi, mais c'est sûr pour les travailleurs. Puis la situation qui m'inquiète vis-à-vis Air Canada, je vais aller voir combien qui a été cancellé. Mais là, qu'est-ce que j'ai entendu avant que je suis parti de chez nous pour acheter la lessive, la détergent à lessive, bien sûr, pour le lavage à linge. C'est quelque chose, bien sûr, que moi-même j'ai fait dans ce point de concordance pour que je sois, bien sûr, intégré totalement pour les avoir, parce que je ne sais pas exactement tous les détails et toutes les normes, tous les protocoles qui se sont passés, bien sûr. Mais qu'est-ce que je sais, bien sûr, c'est que vis-à-vis de certaines circonstances, c'est qu'il a été ordonné de retourner au travail. Fait que ce retour au travail, ça a été quand même une action du gouvernement. Fait que je me demande un peu tous les enjeux, là, qu'est-ce qu'il y avait comme demande, mais c'est sûr que je dois regarder un peu les chiffres, les numéros, bien sûr, vis-à-vis qu'est-ce qu'ils faisaient comme travail, puis vis-à-vis qu'est-ce que les chefs et les dirigeants font comme travail, puis font, bien sûr, qu'ils aillent, bien sûr, dans le travail, d'avoir, bien sûr, comme salaire. Les dirigeants d'Air Canada, je me demande, fait que je vais aller faire un peu de recherche chez nous, même que moi, je dois dire ma gratitude. Mon seul stress maintenant, moi-même, en tant que citoyen neurodivergent, puis androgène pansexuel, puis philosophe, artiste, analyste, théoricien, penseur et stratège de la géopolitique indépendante, c'est sûr que je dois faire ça parce que nous, ma communauté, je fais partie d'une petite communauté de moins d'1%, moins de la moitié d'un pourcentage, à peu près 0,44% des citoyens, ils vivent avec cette condition de neurodivergence qui n'est pas une maladie, s'il vous plaît. L'Asperger n'est pas une maladie, c'est pas une maladie. Je suis pas une maladie, je suis neurodivergent, je suis différent. Les Aspis, nous, on est différents, on voit le monde différemment, on a à cause de ces mutations au niveau du cerveau. Nous, on voit le monde différemment, fait que l'information qu'on reçoit, des fois, on la procède d'une manière plus différente que la majorité des citoyens et citoyennes. Fait que c'est pour ça qu'on voit le monde différemment. C'est juste pour clarifier celle-là, là, dès le début, parce que c'est super important dans cette discussion, parce que malheureusement, chez ma communauté, même qu'on est 0,44%, même pas 1%, même pas la moitié d'un pourcentage, nous, là, le taux de chômage chez nous, dans l'Amérique du Nord, là, il est à 80% et plus. Vous imaginez-vous, comparé à vous qui êtes à 5-6%, ça veut dire que 11 fois plus des gens qui sont atteints par ce syndrome neurologique appelé l'Asperger's vivent avec cette condition. Vous comprenez? C'est 11 fois plus. 11 fois plus. Vous comprenez? C'est 11 fois plus. 11 fois plus. 11 fois plus des citoyens et citoyennes, bien sûr, qui le font. 11 fois plus, bien sûr, des citoyennes et des citoyens qui le font, bien sûr, dans cette situation. Fait que, bien sûr, dans cette situation, bien sûr, de neurodivergents, bien sûr, qui soient, bien sûr, dans ce point d'avoir, bien sûr, une constitution constitutionnelle, d'où qu'on est rendu, nous, là, en tant que neurodivergents, bien sûr, puis neurotypiques, bien sûr, on fait, bien sûr, qu'on aille ces caractéristiques, bien sûr, de neurodivergence, puis on voit le monde différemment. Fait qu'en voyant ce monde différemment, bien sûr, on voit le monde d'une autre manière. Fait qu'on a de la difficulté dans certaines choses de la société, tu sais. On va pas procéder la même information de la même manière, surtout quand ça vient à l'expression des choses sociales. Les normes non écrites, c'est plus difficile pour nous, mais on a des forces quand même. Quand les Asperger's, nous, on a des intérêts spéciaux, c'est connu comme obsessifs, mais ça ne rend pas justice pour que j'utilise le mot obsessif. Puis des fois, on peut être sans filtre, puis on peut offenser les gens par qu'est-ce qu'ils nous répondent ou qu'est-ce qu'on dit, mais c'est pas parce qu'on veut, pas parce qu'on a la volonté de le faire, c'est juste que c'est la manière des fois qu'on est. Mais en même, tu sais, c'est sûr que j'ai eu bien de le travail que j'ai aimé, mais je l'ai perdu souvent, mon travail. Ça a été 4 mois, 3 mois, un couple de semaines, un couple de mois, fait que moi, je suis concentré ces années sur mon travail indépendant, puis je prends beaucoup de fierté dans ce travail indépendant de la géopolitique, c'est mon intérêt spécial. Puis nous, les Asperger, moi, je ne requiers pas beaucoup de soutien, là, juste la compréhension des choses comme ça. Mon seul stress en ce moment, c'est financier. J'ai vécu la dépression, j'étais en suicide, je vis avec les cicatrices, je suis maintenant libre, souverain, puis j'ai prévu qu'est-ce qui se passe maintenant. En 2019, pour cela, là, j'ai la preuve. J'ai la vidéo en ligne, ça fait des années que je sonne l'alarme. Il y a une conflagration qui s'en vient, il y a la tempête du siècle qui s'en vient. Il va y avoir une 3e guerre mondiale depuis 2019. Puis même avant, d'après mes écritures. Puis même que la GRC nous avertit aussi, ça fait des années qu'ils nous avertissent, la GRC, qu'il y a des groupes transnationaux, des syndicats criminels qui s'organisent, qui s'instituent, qui s'installent, sont en train de prendre plus de place dans le milieu de la géopolitique et bien sûr dans le milieu de la géopolitique. Dans le milieu de notre point de vue de la géopolitique, c'est parce que c'est bien sûr ces crimes organisés transnationaux peuvent bien sûr faire enjeu puis faire des ententes avec des gouvernements. Puis ça fait des années puis là, ça m'inquiète parce que depuis 15 jours, le 1er août, là, ça, j'ai pas prévu. J'ai prévu là, qu'il y aura une conflagration internationale, une 3e guerre mondiale. Qu'est-ce que j'ai pas prévu, par exemple? C'est qu'il y aura une détérioration des relations avec les États-Unis. Puis nous, là, Canadiens, Québécois, Canadiens, veut pas, là, notre intérêt principalement, c'est d'avoir les meilleures relations économiques, de diplomatie, socio-culturelle, militaire, de défense, de finances, de commerce, de jeux, de culture, de sport avec les États-Unis, à cause de notre géographie, bien sûr, la position géographique, donc on vit de côte à côte à l'océan, on a deux océans, hein, l'Atlantique et le Pacifique, c'est des enjeux géopolitiques aussi, bien sûr, que notre histoire socio-culturelle commune. On a une histoire socio-culturelle commune, puis un destin commun, bien sûr. Fait que c'est à cause de ça. On ne peut pas dire non à ça. C'est vice-versa, c'est bien sûr pour les États-Unis. Envers nous, c'est la même chose. Même s'il y a une frontière avec le Mexique. Mais ça ne change pas. C'est constamment cette réalité que j'entends pas le politicien parler de cette vérité géopolitique. Il faut le dire. Souvent, là, nous, là, notre intérêt principal, c'est d'avoir les meilleures relations avec les États-Unis. Puisque 75% de nos exportations s'en vont aux États-Unis. L'Europe, avec leurs problèmes, déjà, l'Europe a plein de problèmes, des enjeux économiques, puis sociaux avec l'Ukraine, puis la Russie, puis leur économie, ça va pas bien. Non plus, l'Allemagne. Fait qu'ils vont pas pouvoir absorber plus de biens qu'on les exporte. Nos exportations, on veut pas, là, on a 75 quelques %, bien sûr, sur le canola. L'exportation du canola, ça s'en va où? Ça devrait se faire pour aller pour le marché des États-Unis qui va pouvoir absorber ça d'une manière, hein? Ben c'est ça, parce que ça c'est la géopolitique, je parle pas d'autre chose, je sais bien, je suis pas un partisan de Trump, personnellement je n'aurais pas voté pour Trump, pas du tout, je vais voter pour Cameron Biden, je suis centriste, je lâche progrès, mais quand ça en vient à la géopolitique, c'est ça que je connais le mieux, j'ai prévu qu'est-ce qui se passe maintenant, j'ai la preuve, j'ai mis les petites vidéos en ligne, j'ai la preuve pour ça, je l'ai prévu en 2019, vous comprenez, j'ai prévu en 2019. J'ai prévu en 2019 qu'il y aura une conflagration, bien sûr, internationale, puis le faire, bien sûr, de cette manière que je sois, bien sûr, dans l'affaire d'avoir, bien sûr, une vérité, bien sûr, pour le dire, bien sûr. Parce que là, tu sais, c'est sûr qu'on est en danger, puis on est vulnérable, bien sûr. Nos vulnérabilités sont vis-à-vis ou face à les États-Unis, parce que depuis 2019, je le dis qu'il y aura une conflagration internationale, une troisième guerre mondiale. Puis là, qu'est-ce qui se passe? La GRC aussi, parallèlement, nous ont avertis. Puis là, l'année passée, le 24 octobre 2025, on a vu que la GRC, notre police fédérale, Gendarmerie royale du Canada, ils ont saisi le plus grand laboratoire le plus grand laboratoire qui a produit, on saisit 95 millions de pilules de fentanyl, de pilules, ou que ça soit des pilules ou quelque chose de fentanyl, l'année passée, le 24 octobre. 95 millions de pilules, là, ça aurait pu tuer en parlant de la police, parlant du diable, et vous voyez, ils sont pas parfaits, eux autres non plus, mais moi non plus, mais quand je leur chante du rock'n'roll pour la police, pour le service, parce que j'ai servi dans une autre vie, j'ai servi dans la police dans une autre vie, quand j'étais j'ai rencontré Louis C, dans la GRC aussi, bien, ils ont fait saisie de 95 millions de pilules. Fait que il y a une vérité dans qu'est-ce qu'on est désigné comme une Canada, là, pas les États-Unis, on est désigné comme une menace extraordinaire depuis le 1er août, là. Il faut prendre ça au sérieux, là. Depuis le 1er août, on est désigné comme une menace extraordinaire, hors commun. Puis la GRC, on saisit l'année passée 95 millions de pilules. Ça aurait pu tuer 2 fois la population du Canada. 2 fois la population du Canada, ça aurait pu tuer, vous comprenez? Même des enfants par erreur, tu sais, qui prennent ça, les enfants, là. Les enfants des jeunes, ça revient de plus en plus, ça augmente. Alors, tous les jours, là, toutes les semaines, là, ça va venir quoi? Bien, je pense pas, c'est bien sûr une drogue à ce moment-là. Ça a plus l'air que ça soit, bien sûr, une arme biologique, bactériologique. Parce que si les gens meurent du fentanyl, puis ça cause tellement de dégâts, puis ça n'a pas de sens, parce que, mettons, quand vous continuez de faire de la drogue, bien sûr, c'est bien sûr une consommation que ça fasse, bien sûr, dans ce point de convergence pour le faire, bien sûr, dans ce point de... C'est bien sûr une information que ça soit aujourd'hui pour le faire de la manière, bien sûr, que je sois aujourd'hui dans cette position de dire que, parce que pour moi, ça n'a pas l'air que c'est une drogue, ça. Ça a l'air plus que c'est une arme biologique. Bon, puis là, c'est sûr que je ne soutiens pas Donald Trump, mais ils disent que, puisqu'ils disent dans la déclaration officielle de la Maison-Blanche que ça aurait pu tuer 16 millions d'Américains, vous comprenez que ça me donne des frictions, je m'inquiète là, pour notre sécurité maintenant. Là. Parce que depuis le 1er août, là, l'augmentation des tarifs sur le Canada, ça, j'ai pas prévu, hein, c'est nouveau pour moi aussi. On est désigné comme une menace extraordinaire et hors commun. Comme une menace extraordinaire et hors commun depuis le 1er août. Pour le peuple américain. Ça, il faut qu'on se dirige juste pour maintenant, là. Ça, c'est notre principal problème à résoudre, vous comprenez? Puis ils nous reprochent qu'on n'a pas, bien sûr, que nos forces de l'ordre, nos forces comme la GRC, notre police fédérale, puis des polices, n'ont pas coopéré avec la police des États-Unis à cet égard. Ils nous reprochent ça depuis le 1er août, puis c'est pour ça qu'ils disent que... c'est pour ça qu'ils ont justifié l'augmentation des tarifs. Ça, c'est nouveau pour moi aussi. J'ai pas prévu qu'il y aura une détérioration des relations avec les États-Unis. J'ai pas prévu ça pantoute, c'est nouveau pour moi aussi. J'avais prévu une conflagration internationale du niveau mondial, du niveau global, une troisième guerre mondiale. J'ai pas du tout prévu que nos relations viendront à ce point-là. C'est un point que j'ai jamais vu dans le 21e siècle. Je pense pas qu'il y ait bien du monde qui ont vu ça, qui ont vécu ça, des relations qu'on soit désigné officiellement par une administration, par le président Trump, par l'administration de Trump, par la Maison-Blanche officielle. Vous pourrez voir vous-même. Ils disent qu'on est une menace que le Canada en constitue à cause de ces super laboratoires. Puis l'année passée, le 24 octobre, la GRC veut dire la vérité. Hein? Ils ont saisi le plus grand super laboratoire. Puis ça dit dans ce document, dans cette déclaration, que c'est à cause de ça. C'est le laboratoire domestique des crimes organisés transnationaux qui se sont établis. Puis la GRC nous a fait avertir depuis bien des années. C'est pour ça qu'il faut qu'on fasse un grand recensement. Puis c'est pour ça qu'il faut qu'on fasse l'implémentation de la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. La TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, c'est quelque chose qu'on fait avoir du patient aussi pour le collectif de l'Amérique du Nord, tu sais. parce que c'est un gros collectif qu'on a, le Québec, le Canada, ensemble avec les États-Unis. On constitue un grand collectif de civilisation. Hein? On est une civilisation nouvelle. On n'est pas tout à fait divorcé, mais on est émergent. On n'est pas divorcé de l'Occident, mais on a des distinctions. Fait qu'on soit désigné comme une menace extraordinaire et hors commun. Puis moi, que j'avais prévu qu'il y aurait une conversation internationale, ma théorie, TRD, théorie de la réfusion de la dette, il faut faire l'implémentation, puis il faut qu'on se fusionne avec les États-Unis d'une manière, par un grand partenariat public-privé, pour faire bien du travail intérieur domestique sur la réparation de nos autoroutes, bâtir plus de centrales d'Hydro-Québec, financer les gens à l'entraînement physique, bâtir plus de bâtiments sociaux, puis c'est les travailleurs en construction, les boulangers, les camionneurs, les travailleurs publics, tout ça qu'il faut remercier, ceux qui font bien sûr maintenant du fromage, des saucisses et toutes les productions alimentaires qui se passent à travers le monde dans le collectif. Et bien sûr, c'est dans cette appellance, bien sûr qu'il faut que le dire, tu sais, parce que sinon, je ne veux rien savoir, vous ne me parlez pas d'autre chose, je suis pas bon dans d'autres choses, je suis bon à la géopolitique, au sport, à l'entraînement physique, au rock'n'roll. Je suis l'Asperger's, je suis différent, monsieur, madame, que ce soit que je suis mystique, que je parle d'autres réincarnations, oui, tout à fait. Des fois, j'ai été né homme, femme, femme-homme, dans mes réincarnations de l'ancienne Égypte prêtresse, que ce soit ici de la Légion de Rome, que je vous chante peut-être en latin, vous n'allez rien comprendre, mais de la géopolitique, il faut que vous compreniez qu'on est désigné là, par les États-Unis depuis le premier. C'est sérieux, là. J'ai des frissons, j'en parle. Là. Vous voyez, avec la fleur de lys tatouée sur moi, puis la fleur de lys, puis avec le du Canada, le drapeau, je l'ai toujours sur moi. Il faut qu'on se fusionne avec les États-Unis pour le 20e siècle. Ma TRD, par la théorie de la refusion de la dette que je mets sur la table, paradoxe pour la création de l'unité de l'échange universel, il faut qu'on soit vis-à-vis pour la création de deux institutions, puis il faut qu'on fasse un grand recensement en implémentant la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette. On va prendre toute la dette publique privée du collectif, du Canada, des États-Unis, on va faire la refusion, on va faire la création d'une nouvelle monnaie. Fait qu'on va prendre, parce que là, il y a 4 problèmes qui nous pressent, qui nous poussent. La majorité des citoyens et concitoyennes, on vit à cause de ces 4 problèmes, aux États-Unis aussi. C'est pour ça que ma TRD, bien sûr, il faut qu'on fasse l'implémentation du Canada et des États-Unis en même temps, du Canada et des États-Unis en même temps. Le problème, c'est bien sûr on a des problèmes, bien sûr, du point de vue que l'augmentation des prix du coût de la vie, le beurre, le pain, le beurre, les fromages, les saucisses, ça augmente. Parallèlement au coût de la vie qui augmente, on a la stagnation des salaires. Les salaires stagnent. La stagnation des salaires, bien sûr, c'est quelque chose qu'on a avec la stagnation des salaires. Et cette stagnation des salaires, c'est problématique vis-à-vis, bien sûr, que les coûts de loyer, les loyers s'augmentent. Mon loyer a augmenté aussi entre 6 $ et 10 $. Je ne vais pas dire que je peux me plaindre, parce que je ne peux pas vraiment me plaindre moi-même, mais ça a augmenté entre 6 et 10 $. Je ne peux pas me plaindre moi-même, parce que où j'habitais auparavant, c'était bien moins, bien sûr, plaisant, parce qu'il y avait beaucoup de moisissures, puis j'ai déménagé en 2015. J'habitais dans une petite place, comme une petite maison. Fait que c'est entre 6 et 10. Et le 4e, bien sûr, c'est bien sûr la stagnation des salaires, le coût de la vie, le coût, bien sûr, des loyers, et bien sûr, les crédits, les cartes de crédit qui augmentent. Et bien sûr, l'augmentation des cartes de crédit, bien sûr, ça fait, bien sûr, dans ce domaine qu'on soit, ces 4 problèmes qui nous pressent de point de vue majeur. Fait que la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, je l'en discute, puis je l'en parle maintenant quand je vais faire 180 degrés, comme j'ai fait bien du changement. C'est mon 4e changement, je veux dire, depuis, mettons, 2000, comme 2014, parce que ma mémoire avant ça, ça vient pas un peu, bien sûr, pour l'être dans ce point de convergence, pour l'être vis-à-vis toutes les choses, bien sûr, qu'on fait ensemble. Fait que la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, pour la création de l'unité d'échange universelle, super important qu'on fasse l'implémentation aussitôt possible, parce que ça presse. On est dans un point critique, point d'urgence, que je vais dire, bien sûr, de la TRD. Fait que la TRD, je vous l'explique, on va prendre, parce qu'aux États-Unis, c'est pareil, hein, avec le Canada, les 4 problèmes, là, c'est des 4 de quelle manière, dans quel ordre vous les placez. Là. Le coût de la vie, ça augmente à tous les jours. Les prix augmentent à tous les jours. Ben, pas tous les prix de toutes choses, là, mais des choses principales. La stagnation des salaires, principalement, le coût de la vie qui augmente, la stagnation des salaires. Avec ça, bien sûr, le coût de la vie qui augmente, la stagnation des salaires. Bien sûr, avec ça, le coût de loyer qui augmente, mon loyer aussi a augmenté. Et bien sûr, le 4e, ça sera les cartes de crédit, bien sûr. Avec les cartes de crédit, bien sûr, qui augmentent. Puis ça fasse, bien sûr, dans ce point de convergence pour qu'on soit, bien sûr, aujourd'hui, ces 4 problèmes-là presse. Fait que la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, pour la création création de l'unité d'échange universelle, il faut qu'on fasse l'implémentation, bien sûr. Fait qu'on va prendre toute la dette publique-privée, mon 10 000, ton 10 000, son 10 000, de côte à côte, de sien en sien. Tout ça, on va l'ajouter ensemble, faire l'addition ensemble, inclure mon 10 000 à la Banque Royale. On va faire la conversion dans la devise des États-Unis. On va mettre tout ça ensemble, puis on va faire la création d'une nouvelle monnaie, une nouvelle banque, comme qu'ils ont fait en Europe dans les années 90 par la création de la Banque centrale de l'Europe. Ils n'ont plus de banque nationale, les Européens. Seulement, ils ont une monnaie d'échange commune. Fait qu'on va faire de la création de l'UI. U point unité, E point échange, U point universel. U point unité, E point échange, U point universel. UI. U point unité, E point échange, U point universel. La UI. U point unité, E point échange, U point universel. On ne s'assinera pas en anglais, c'est pareil. UI. Aura la valeur du dollar des États-Unis. On va faire la création d'une nouvelle banque. On va enlever la frontière, finir avec la frontière, intégrer nos forces de police, la GRC avec la FBI, le Bureau fédéral d'enquête. Le Bureau fédéral d'enquête, on va faire la création de 2 institutions de partenariat public-privé, soit l'armée du dragon, l'armée impériale pour la sécurité et la défense, l'armée intégrale du dragon, l'armée impériale pour la sécurité, service et défense, soit l'armée du dragon, SSD, c'est pour la sécurité, service, défense totale, bien sûr basé sur mes protocoles de 9.1 du dragon pour la sécurité, service et défense totale intégrée. On va faire bâtir d'autres centrales d'Hydro-Québec, on va faire bâtir, financer les gens à l'entraînement physique, financer les gens au tourisme, financer les gens à l'entraînement physique, financer les gens au tourisme, financer le bien-être du point de vue de la société, bien sûr, financer le tourisme. Intra 63, et bien sûr, on va faire bâtir, construire les 44 tunnels majeurs, cités, villages souterrains avec forme de tunnels dans le cas d'une guerre thermonucléaire. Puis on se demande pourquoi la Chine a augmenté de construire durant ces 3 années et demie, là, massif. Ils ont construit comme 44% de plus que ce qu'il y avait auparavant de bombes nucléaires. Il faut qu'on se pose ces questions. Fait que c'est soit des amis avec bénéfice, prêter allégeance, les gens soutenaient le rêve de votre dragon arc-en-ciel, artiste, philosophe et stratège en géopolitique qui se manifeste premièrement comme le royaume de la déesse et du dragon qui danse pour l'Empire, la fusion du Canada et des États-Unis dans un complexe impérial pour l'avenir et pour le futur. C'est bien sûr la TRD, théorie de la refusion de la dette, qui va nous sortir, bien sûr, pour en avoir la création de l'unité d'échange universelle entre nous. Puis on va se fusionner, on va faire la création de ces 2 nouvelles institutions. La Ligue impériale, bien sûr, pour la sécurité, service et défense. La Ligue, bien sûr, pour la sécurité, service et défense totale. Bien sûr, en intégrant, bien sûr, tous ces manèges qu'on puisse le faire pour le faire, bien sûr, dans ce point de compromis pour être, bien sûr, ici, sur le plateau, bien sûr, qu'on vit ensemble dans ce grand collectif. Puis bien sûr, ça va être pour le bien commun. On va financer pas juste l'entraînement physique, on va bâtir, bien sûr, bien du travail, bien sûr, qu'on va faire pour la construction massive des hébergements sociaux, puis on va faire ouvrir la sécurité alimentaire pour, bien sûr, pouvoir nourrir les gens, parce que, bien sûr, pour la sécurité service totale, l'intégration citoyenne, puis l'établissement de ces 63 vision par la fusion imperpétuelle républicain impérial du Canada et des États-Unis, 13 plus 50, ça fait 63. Prêtez allégeance les gens, vous êtes famille.